Homer led the league in tackles with 85. The deep ball for Darius Prince, and Philadelphia's on the board first.
On the draw, this is Bryson Allen. And Allen weaving his way all the way down to the 22. 10-yard line, 5. Mayfield, Dancy, all around. Throw it as far as he can throw it. Jump ball coming. Crazy stuff. Not this time.
And you want to be a wide receiver. You're going to have to take a little bit of a hit like that as Brown got him in that shoulder, but watch. Those are teeth.
Do we have a dentist on staff here?
All right, we are back with another episode of Around the Indoor Football World. As always, I am joined by my always trusty co-host, Krish Vyas. Krish, how you doing this morning, man?
I'm doing good. Excited for the opportunity to get back to 500 today. So just excited overall.
Absolutely. I know I've been giving you a hard time off camera, but, honestly, I think the league is better when Massachusetts is competitive. So hopefully they can kind of get back on track here and find their stride and keep moving forward. They're one of the better teams in the league. So like I said, it's always a good thing to have, that parity, that competition across the league. You want games to matter every time they're played, right? So we're going to actually start off with the IFL this time. And I know we don't normally do that, but we're going to talk about some transaction news. There was all of a sudden a flurry of transactions last night. Fisher's Freight, Massachusetts, Tucson, San Diego. They all kind of snuck in some moves right there over the past couple days. From like the 10th on, there's just been quite a bit of movement. So we're going to go ahead and pull up the transaction list here, and we're going to discuss some of the bigger ones. I personally believe, and I would love to get your opinion on this, that one of these moves that Fisher's Freight made was a big one, and it was right after actually Massachusetts released this guy. But here we have the list for Fisher's. If you look there right at the bottom, they signed running back Dominic Roberto, who was previously with Massachusetts. They've definitely needed some work there on the in the running game, to bring in somebody who could kind of buoy the ship there and take some of the pressure off the quarterbacks, because as you see it just a couple moves above here, Jaya Wright, the person who's been starting for Fishers most of the season, has now moved on. He is joining an LFA team. I believe it was the Mexicas, if I remember correctly. And he will no longer be with Fishers for the rest of the season. So that's obviously opens up a big hole. What do you do about that? You bring in a big, powerful running back who can kind of break some tackles and carry the load. And then you kind of figure something else out at quarterback, which the only other quarterback they have signed since Jaya Wright left is our good buddy Julian Walker, who is not a quarterback by trade. He's a wide receiver. So I'm curious to see how that all works out. But what are your thoughts on the moves that are listed right here? The couple releases, all of that.
Yeah, I'll start with Dominic Roberto. I find it funny that he signed with the Eastern Conference team. I would not be surprised if that was done purposely at all. No, look, I think he's a great running back. I enjoyed having him here while he was here. I wish him luck. He's always part of the team. Once you're a Pirate, you're always a Pirate, and he'll be part of the team on the IFL network when we're in the playoffs. So I'm excited for him. I hope they find some rhythm. But that team overall is not good. We played them last week. They have good linemen, but their skill positions are weak. And so they needed to make a move and add him. Shane Simpson, their main running back from the Bay Area, he's taking a ton of the load, and they need to take pressure off him. And Roberto opens up, the power game, the 3rd and 2. That team is terrible. in short yardage situations. They're awful. Like, I would love to see the third down, fourth down conversions. Because if you get them in 3rd and 3, you basically have them locked. So, Roberto helps in the short yardage game, of course. Obviously, Jordan Kress, losing him is hard, right? Like, he's, a good slot receiver. Sharari Smith, I love Sharari Smith. I think, he's one of the most underrated receivers in the game right now. But I'm glad that he's back with them. Vinny Gregory, he's bounced around. He's a little bit of a liability in the run blocking game, and so I'm not surprised that they moved on from him. He's a good player, but he just doesn't fit what Dixie's trying to build. And then, signing a new DB, Justin Terry. I believe he spent time with the Jacksonville Sharks, Bear, Panthers, so he's been around the block. So, they're just trying to make moves to salvage their season at this point. You're 2-8. You play Quad Cities tonight, and, it's just kind of like Dixie Wooten is trying to do everything he can to, turn the ship around or at least get the 5 wins on the season. So,
yeah, I wanted to get your opinion on this before we move on, and I'm honestly not really sure I'm honestly not really sure if there's one thing you can point to that's particularly the issue with Fishers, Brett. I know that you and I and everybody else that we've had on the show has talked very highly of Fishers prior to the season. They're incredibly talented on paper. They looked like one of the best teams in the East in terms of just on paper. And, here we are so many weeks later, and they're disappointing. Like you said, 2-5, I believe it was. What do you think is the biggest issue that Fishers needs to correct as they try to get back on track and become, a winning team?
They need to convert the short yardage, 3rd down. Like I said earlier, like, you get that team in 3rd down and 2, 4th down and 3, they're not going to convert 9 times out of 10. They really struggle with those short yardage downs. And so I think, obviously, like, Roberto helps, but they need to figure out, Carlos Davis, he needs to get the ball out quicker. Last week he played us, and there was a play on 4th down and 2. He ran 20 yards backwards and got sacked, right? And so he needs to get the ball out quicker. They need to kind of, move in more tempo. I think the defense is okay, but the defensive line has really, like, I would love for us to go and look at the D-line week 2 to what it is now. It's totally regressed, totally. Their D-line, it's not good, not what it used to be in the first 2 weeks of the season. And I don't know if that's because of the opponents they played or what, but yeah, it's a different D-line. They need to correct the defense. I think in the offseason they need to go and really assess, how many vets they want to have on the team and how many rookies. I think this year they've had a lot of rookies, and I don't know if Dixie can build a team with rookies. I think he needs more veteran leadership. So that's my thing on that.
That's fair. A lot of the guys they brought in were recently with UFL teams or CFL teams, and there were a handful of guys that came on after experience with other IFL teams, but overall it was not a very veteran-laden team overall. They're really kind of relying on a lot of first-time indoor football players to really kind of buoy the ship and, bring in the talent, for lack of a better term there. And for a while, it looked pretty good. Correct me if I'm wrong, but were they 3-0 or was it 3-1 before the losing really started beginning?
I believe they started 2-0, and then we played them. I think they lost. Yeah, we gave them their first loss, and then I think they won the game after we played us. So I believe they started 3-1.
That's what I thought. Okay. Yes, that's obviously something to follow going forward. Like I said, I thought Fishers was going to be one of the better teams in the league, and it just seems to not have panned out that direction. And, obviously sometimes the best rosters on paper just don't pan out overall and end up being what we thought they might be, and they don't end up, fully fulfilling their potential, which I'm actually kind of surprised by. that we have seen that, from them. Dixie Wooten's been to the championship game in the IFL in many different capacities and over the years several times, and he built the roster from the ground up, and I really was impressed, and it just has not looked the way we had hoped. But
I want to bring up one point.
Go
I
ahead.
want to bring up. Do you think they called Daquan Neal too late? Because in the off season when I was assessing Fishers, I always had it like Daquan Neal was going to be starting that. There was no question, and then he magically appeared with Quad Cities. So I wonder what happened with Daquan Neal. Why didn't he end up in Indy? I really would love to know that. So
That's a good point. I would love to know that as well. I think there would be it would be fun to be a fly on the wall and hear the reasoning behind that, or kind of see the situation and see how it unfolded, and wonder exactly what stopped that from happening. I mean, we all kind of talked about it before the season. Dixie and Daquan Neal have been together in several different spots over the years, and it was one of those situations where I expected it to happen again. We've got several comments. We'll get to them here shortly. Coach O'Neill, I see you out there. Comment about the TAL. We will get to it, sir. Typically, that is one of the later segments just based on guest availability, and still want to get you on someday, sir. So if you're still watching, one of these days we need to get that set up and get you back on and talk about your career as well. But
I'm glad Coach Tony's watching. I'm glad. That's lit. Good to see you.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always nice to have people from the industry watching. So really, really appreciate that. But we're going to move up these transactions a little bit and talk about some of the moves that some of these other teams made. And we will slide this up real quick here. And Tulsa made a ton of moves. If you want to discuss that real quick.
All right, we'll start at the bottom. I'm sorry, Daniel. Your boy Gene Tapia. It might be the end of the road for him. Far Phantoms, you got a good lineman coming. Martez Carter. Oh, man. Meatball coming back to Tulsa. He teased this last week on his Instagram. I think I put it on our chat that he was going to come back. So, Martez, that's a huge thing. Their running game is really one-dimensional. I love my boy Hassan Rogers, but he's not a power back. Right, they need someone, again, goal line situations. You need someone that can punch it in those short yardage, 3rd and 2s, 3rd and 3s. So that's a great move to bring Martez Carter back. Joshua Crockett, finally my boy Croc comes back. He was on short-term IR. He's been hurt. I think this is like the 6th time in 2 years he's been on short-term IR. He's dealing with a shoulder injury. It's a lingering one. Rio Ramirez coming back. He was with them 2 weeks ago. He's all right. Nothing special. Tariq Stewart from Columbus. Now, let me tell you, that's a good up-and-coming lineman. Really good. I believe he went to FAMU. Really, really good. Really good to, see a guy coming over and continuing their playing career for the season. Yurick Jones, defensive lineman. I mean, Big U. You can't ever go wrong with Yurick, coming over from San Antonio. I think San Antonio is just trying to save vet spots. And honestly, they might be cutting payroll too, because it looks like it with these last couple of moves. So Yurick going, obviously that's a big move to shore up that D-line. That D-line's been a liability all year. That D-line, in my opinion, is top 3 worst D-line in the IFL right now. This old lineman, I believe this is the one who got ejected 2 weeks ago in Iowa, so makes sense there. Katron Allen, that's a huge loss. He's one of the better DBs in the IFL, top 15 DB in my opinion. And then Spencer Tears, in the offseason, Spencer Tears signed with the Alabama Beavers of the IFA, and so this might be a move where he's like, I want to go outdoors. This is not for me, or this could be a move that's a sign that either Faison McClurge is coming back within the next week, or Charles Heaton, who recently got released from the BC Lions, is coming back. So I would look for either one of those names to show up in Tulsa next week. And then I'll also talk about Naz, Devin Thomas. That's one of my guys. So excited to see him coming back. And then, yeah.
Absolutely. A lot of big moves over the past couple days here. Another one that I think was a big move for Bay Area, but ultimately does not pan out right away, is the addition of Damon Williams. He came back from the CFL just a couple days ago. And then also, if you see here, Donald Myers, also known as DJ Myers, signs with the Bay Area Panthers. That's a big move. Obviously, a guy that can do some damage here. Another guy that was recently on the move that it lands on IR, Mikel Calhoun, who recently signed with Arizona. We'll get to their roster here shortly because there was a lot of turnover in terms of injury issues there as well. Also, why don't you go ahead and talk real quick for us on Tyon Evans?
So I'll start with DJ. DJ, I found out on Wednesday night, DJ is one of my boys. So it's good to hear, DJ continuing to play this season. He's one of the best in the IFL. For DJ, I'm so happy to go to an East Conference team. I'm so happy we don't have to face him. I told him we'll see him in Tucson in August. But, no, it's exciting to see DJ with a good franchise. Tyon Evans, we needed Puka's great. I've always said Puka Williams is our guy, right? We ride or die by Puka. But it's important, Puka's been banged up a little bit. Obviously, got hurt a little bit last game in the third quarter. I don't know if you noticed, but he was limping around a little bit. So, Tyon helps shore up that backfield for us. Now, I will say, Tyon Evans, his field vision is insane. Like, if you go and watch his film, he does really good. Shifty. His field vision is great. He knows how to read a block well. So I think Tyon's a big move for us. Big in those goal line situations. And honestly, I think we made an upgrade at that running back 2 spot. Honestly, and people might say I'm crazy, but this is a guy who's coming straight from the BC Lions. He's hungry to get back on the field. I heard he's a high character individual, so excited to have him here for sure.
No, he's a big addition. I'm very excited to see exactly what he can do with Mass. Wanted to cover some of the comments here. For whatever reason, they're not popping up on my ticker here, so I can't select them. But here's some of the comments coming in on our Facebook page. Frederick Elliott says, "Do you feel they have surrounded Dixie Wooten with the right support staff?" I'll give that one to you, Krish. I'm curious what you think.
Dixie has everything he needs to be successful. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to try to say, he doesn't. He has everything he needs to be successful in Indy. There's nothing for a first-year coach in a first-year franchise, and I think Coach O'Neill can, Tony, Coach Tony, if you're watching, I think you can attest to this too. When your ownership gives you resources, I feel like as a coach, it makes your job easier, per se. You know what I mean? You have the resources, you're able to compete at a high level, right? Dixie has everything he needs in Indy. It's great ownership. He has, obviously great fan base. Guys are going to want to come to Indy. And so it's not the support staff. It's the decision that the coaches surrounding him are not veteran coaches. Keontae Northington, he's one of our former DBs. He played for us last year. He's calling the defense. This is his first year, and he's a DB coach, and he's already calling the defense. It's going to be a learning curve, right? Transitioning from a player to coach, especially in the IFL, is a big curve, right? And then Dixie Wooten, the second, his son, only a second-year coach. And so I just think, it's hard. You need to kind of shore up that staff a little bit. I would have added another veteran coach if I was him. I would have, honestly. And so I think it's when he steps back and really reevaluates the season, I think he's going to say, oh, man, I wish I would have added a veteran coach on staff. For sure.
I kind of wonder if they were following, the formula where you spend the money on the players and not necessarily coaching staff. And, I don't know what Dixie Wooten makes on a yearly basis as a head coach in the IFL, but I would imagine it's on the higher side. And if you don't have a huge budget for your coaching staff as a whole, maybe that's where a lot of that money goes. But I'm going to go ahead and bring on Coach B. He's sitting here in the back, and he has a few thoughts on one of the questions, and he wanted to comment on the staff. How's it going, Coach? Thanks for joining us.
Good morning, fellas. How y'all doing today?
Doing well. How about you?
I can't complain, man. Beautiful day, the sun shining. So hey, we here.
Absolutely. So what are your thoughts on Dixie Wooden's staff?
I would agree with Chris. The lack of the support staff around him. I think he has everything from the front office. They gave him everything. They have the budget. They got the marketing. They got the fans behind them. I think he went with what he felt safe, and put his guys on, is what they say, instead of vetting the right coaches to come in and really help with their staff. Because you got guys who are 1 or 2 years removed from playing, calling plays, which when they were playing, were they at a high caliber when they were ending playing on knowledge of the game and all that. So you got to take that into effect too. The staff you put around you is essential to what you bring to the table as a head coach.
No, that's a great point. That's a great point. I mean, obviously, it's hard for any one coach to do it all. There's only so many people out there in the world that can call offense, defense, build a roster, do all these different things that it takes to find success in this league or any other league for that matter. And, honestly, I think that you guys have made some good points, and maybe he did need another veteran or two on the staff to kind of give him another respected voice. Not saying that these coaches are disrespected by any stretch, but just somebody who commands the room the second they walk in it, rather than having to kind of build up that rapport with the players from week one. So it's definitely something to watch and look at moving forward, and kind of track how they approach their coaching staff heading into 2026. Because at this point, I think it's probably a lost cause on this season, but we shall see how things go forward. But still,
Crazy thing, Shady.
Sorry, go ahead.
I thought they were going to be like one of the top contenders. If you ask Chris, I told Chris at the beginning of the season, I'm like, hey, they got the squad. If they can make the right adjustments, the right coaching moves, they're going to be the team to beat. But it turned out a little bit different, and I'm kind of surprised with the backing that, because most coaches don't get the backing that from an ownership group or from a front office that they're getting out there. So I'm surprised on how the play on the field don't correlate to what they're bringing in.
I completely agree on that. Moving forward, we have a ton more transactions here. Tucson made a bunch of moves. Put 3 guys on short-term IR, activated 1 from short-term to IR, released 3, and moved forward with some new faces. They brought in Brian Smith, and even though that's a Fisher Freight logo right there, they brought in Trenelius Tatum, a pretty solid wide receiver, linebacker, and then Deshaun Mallory on that defensive line. Hassan Black is returning to the San Antonio Gunslingers after a stint on injured reserve. That's another big move. They're also bringing back offensive lineman Matt Burrell. Desmond Tisdale is being replaced by Black coming back, and then also had to place Carl Reynolds on short-term IR. Iowa is getting back Devin Hayes from the CFL. That could potentially be a big deal for them. I thought it was kind of surprising that they opted to release Keyshawn Taylor. Krish, what are your thoughts on those 2 moves for Iowa in particular?
I mean, when you're 1-8, a veteran player like Keyshawn is not going to hang around. You know what I mean? Like, he's been around the block. Why would you want to hang around when you're 1-8? He's probably asked for his release. He said, I'm done. I'm not playing this anymore. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see him end up with a high-level team, either in the IFL or TAL or AF1 down the stretch. I think he's a really good – Keyshawn Taylor is a really good veteran presence. He's a good leader. Leadership is important, and I think he's someone that I would love as a coach to bring in my locker room.
That's definitely fair. Honestly, I'm a fan of Keyshawn. We've had him on the show at points in time, and he's a solid dude overall as far as I'm concerned. But I could see that too. The the season is pretty much already over for Iowa. They probably are, if not eliminated yet, they're pretty close to being eliminated from playoff contention already. So I could definitely see something like that where a veteran wants to move forward somewhere else and see if he can latch on with the playoff team as things kind of transition and make their way through the season. Another semi-big name at wide receiver up here, Gurney Sloan, was released by the San Diego Strike Force. Gurney Sloan previously was with the Omaha Beef in 2023, won a championship with them. Then he played with Duke City Gladiators last season and then signed with San Diego this year. But he's been released. That seems kind of an odd move there. But they also lost brought back Trevon Van from short-term IR. They also lost Draco Statham to IR, but then they bring in Cyrus Fagan, another defensive back. And they also previously signed D. Hafford too. So bringing in some guys on that defensive backfield.
Man, I cannot say enough good things about Cyrus Fagan, honestly. So he was with us last year. He signed, I believe, week 13 we signed him. Man, he's a great leader. I remember the first time he came to here, he was our fifth DB on the roster. And I remember seeing him come out on special teams and just the leadership he brought, right? And I told him, I said, man, you're going to be a big piece for us down the stretch. And he was. He's a big reason why we went to the championship last year. And so to see him in San Diego, it's like, that's a lit. Coach Miller got that squad lit. That shows that Coach Miller formed relationships with the players to get them to come over to San Diego. So Cyrus is going to do great things in San Diego. I expect him to be that piece. When you get Cyrus, when you get Draco back, and you get D. Hafford, man, that's a nice secondary you got in San Diego. So I expect them to be. That's a big move. That's a move that a lot of people will look at and say, it's a smaller move. No, that's a huge move for San Diego. They got a baller. So I'm excited to see that team down the stretch for sure.
Absolutely. And we're going to transition a little bit. We've talked about all the big transactions over the past couple of days. A lot of big names coming into the league, a lot of big names kind of shuffling around as the season goes on. We kind of grown used to stuff like that in the IFL, the NAL, stuff like that. You always kind of see players move around a little bit once playoff contention is starting to be figured out. But the final subject that we're going to discuss in the IFL before we move on to the AF1, is the Green Bay Jacksonville game last night. And holy blowouts, Batman. 75-43, Green Bay laid a whooping down last night. I was surprised to see it. Let's go to Coach B on this one. Coach, what are your thoughts on this? Did you expect to see Green Bay beat down Jacksonville like that?
I did expect Jacksonville to win because they've been hot lately, but I did not expect it to happen like that. Like, I actually thought Green Bay was going to be one of the top 3 teams in the league this year. So to see them where they at right now and what happened last night, I'm shocked, Chris and Sam. Like, honestly, I don't know if the players are not buying in no more or what, but they got to get it turned around in Green Bay, especially in Titletown.
Absolutely. Krish, what are your thoughts on that game?
I criticize a lot of teams' D-line play, and I think D-line is the most, honestly, you look at DBs, Coach, I think you can agree, D-line is really important. It's as important. You need a D-line that can get pressure. That D-line plays so slow. When we play them, man, it was like that D-line is not special, and that's going to cost them against teams like us that have a solid running game. Green Bay has a great running game with Max Myler. And so, you look at how much time his O-line gave him. Max Myler had 5 to 7 seconds in the pocket every play. You can't expect to win. I've been hearing all season, Jacksonville, their defense is this, defense is that. Their defense is not shit. It's overrated. It's not good. And their DB room is, I was telling someone this last night. I said, their DB room is above average slightly, and their D-line is way below average. And so that balances it out on defense. Tyler Huff, I think he's a good quarterback, but if you watch the film, he takes 3 seconds to plant his left foot. And so by the time he turns and throws, it's 4.5 to 5 seconds. That's not giving you enough time to get the ball out. right? That's going to get you killed, especially if did you watch the game last night, Coach B, at all? You
Yes,
saw
I
that
did.
that linebacker for Green Bay, Andre White. Oh my God, that kid is special. He was with Harrisburg Stampede last year in the AIF, so he's a really good linebacker. Really, really good. He balled out last night. He should win Defensive Player of the Week, and we haven't even finished the week, and I already know he's gonna win Defensive Player of the Week. He's a fast linebacker, and so if you have a fast linebacker at Jacksonville, you're gonna win. That's just like, you know what I mean? Like, so it's just, I don't know, man. That team needs to go back to the drawing board. They have too much talent to be, I know they're 7-4, but they have a tough 4 games coming up. So I'm, I wonder if they can get it turned around. But yeah, it's interesting.
All right. Well, I think we've covered pretty much all the IFL topics for this morning. Is there anything that we missed that we need to discuss, Krish?
We could do our betting picks now, or we could do it later. So whatever you want.
I think. What do y'all think? I'm gonna ask this question. What do you think about Tucson?
Ooh, I think Billy Back is running out of time in Tucson, and I think it's not even him. It's a mutual decision. I can't see him in Tucson after this season. I think he doesn't have the resources he needs to be successful. I'll just be honest. Like
I think he has the resources, but you got to realize Billy goes with the same style he's been going with for years, and it hasn't been working. So if you don't change it up and you're stuck in your ways, this is the results of what happens.
Right. I also think, but I think he's never been in a position where, like Dixie Woo, I don't think he can build a team of rookies. I don't think he's capable.
He been at Spokane. He had all the tools necessary in Spokane.
He did,
but Wichita Falls Nighthawks. He had all the tools necessary down there.
Right, but if you look at this situation, right, he doesn't have a veteran quarterback. He has a rookie quarterback. He had Troy Evans, Jordan Jolly. He had a ton of vets in Spokane. That was before they implement. That's when they had 9. The vet rule was 9 instead of 7. So it gave him a little bit more leeway with the roster. So, I mean, I don't think Tucson is the place for him. I don't think he'll be in Tucson next year. I really don't. I think we'll see him with another franchise.
But then don't that go down to coaching? You're not gonna always get vets. You got to start coaching. Us coaches got to start coaching up these rookies.
No, I agree, but I don't think him and Coach Kaiser are on the same page at all. He threw that defense under the bus and ran over it 10 times, saying like, we got to get the defense fixed. Those guys don't play hard enough. I'm like, bro, your offense is not even that good either, right? Like your offense has been inconsistent. Jorge Reyna is better, but he's good for a pick a game or a fumble. He's always turning over the ball, right? You can't win when you have a quarterback that turns over the ball every game. He's solid, he's consistent, but late game situations, I can't trust him to win the game for me. So I think, I don't know. I don't think that team is good. I think that team might win 5 games at the most, and we'll see the rest.
So here in the comments, Wookie says Jacksonville bench was fighting late in the game. Did you guys catch that?
I did catch that. I did.
I didn't.
Well, their DB Malik Jones, I've talked so much good about him. He's one of the best DBs in the IFL, but he's very emotional. He spazzes out after every play. And so he wants to win. He's a competitor, but he's a rookie. And so he has to learn that in intense situations, you can't lose control. You can't lose your emotions because that affects the whole team, right? You're viewed as one of the better players on that defensive side of the ball. You got to be, you got to be level-headed. And then they got Brandon Munoz back, and I think Brandon Munoz is a good player, but he's also emotional, right? And so he wants to win. And so you got so many guys on that defense, high emotion. They got to figure out how to kind of level the temperature down the stretch. Otherwise, it's going to hurt them.
Is Munoz from the linebacker DM from Wheeling?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
He's nice. I like him.
Yeah, he's a good player for sure, and played in Jacksonville before Wheeling, and obviously went to go play where he played his college ball in Wheeling and decided to come back after the season. So I expect him to be a factor for Jacksonville down the stretch for sure. So, they've got a lot of solid pieces there in Jacksonville too. So it's kind of crazy to see them where they're at right now. They started off hot and have kind of faltered and then found the rhythm again, and now they're trying to figure it out. But Yeah, anyway, I think that's basically all the IFL subjects for the day. We're going to hit a quick commercial break, and then we'll transition over to the AF1. There was a big brawl after the Southwest Kansas Salina game, which we're going to talk about. There was also some news that Dylan Burkhart from the Southwest Kansas Storm has announced this will be his final season. And there was a couple other storylines coming out of the AF1 this year or this week, so we'll discuss those as well. All right, and for one more shameless plug, we have stickers. Again, they're not very big. They're about 2 inches by 2 inches. They are our Shady Sports Network logo, or at least the updated one. You can get one for $2, or you can buy 3 or more and get them for $1 a piece. If you're interested, hit us up in the DMs on any of your favorite social media platforms. But moving on to the AF1, as I mentioned a moment ago, there was a rather large fight after the Salina and Southwest Kansas game. There was some video that came out recently that showed parts of the fight, but not the whole thing. And it seems like there are two very conflicting stories about what happened in this fight. And let's go ahead and talk about it. I mean, I don't want to spend a ton of time talking about the negative side of the game, but this is obviously not something you want to see at any point. Krish, I'll let you kick us off on this one.
Yeah, so I reached out to Coach O from Salina. I offered my, condolences, right? Coach O is a veteran coach. He shouldn't have to deal with being assaulted on the field. I like Nick Evans, the player that assaulted him, but, Nick Evans needs to learn, you can't put hands on a coach, especially a coach like Coach O. And so I'm sure Coach Thomas called Coach O and offered an apology. I know they're two good friends. But obviously, two sides to every story. I want to know the whole truth, right? I got to give them credit. But I think the AF1 should have put out some type of statement, right? This is what happened. This is what steps we're taking. I don't even know which players are suspended. There has to be. I mean, if the fight is going in the locker room like that, in the tunnel, there has to be a couple players that were suspended. So the fact that we don't know that kind of leaves us fans, questioning, what action is the AF1 taking to make sure this doesn't happen. There's no place for fighting in the game. I hate to see fighting. I don't think fighting has any place in the game. I think it's, Coach B, we talk about it all the time, certain dudes, man, they love to spaz out. I think certain dudes play football just to fight. And it's completely inappropriate and dangerous, right? Fighting is dangerous. Fighting can get someone seriously hurt. And it's not appropriate. So I feel bad for Coach O. I'm praying for him. I hope he, is doing okay after, being assaulted like that. And I'm really disappointed to see. But I know Coach Thomas, that's not the culture he's trying to build. It's not. Coach Thomas is trying to build a culture where everyone is held accountable, except the center. But I think it's good, man. He's trying to build something, and I know he's probably had a long talk with the team. I mean, he's coached JUCO ball for so long. He's had the team fights, right? Fights are part of JUCO ball, and so he probably, has a good response to it. But yeah.
As you all know, I'm pretty close to a lot of the guys on the Southwest Kansas football team. So I heard a slightly different story than what is out there, and I find it funny that Krish is saying got assaulted. Let's back up real quick. Haran O'Neal is a former NFL player, guys. I know he's older, right? But he's not a small coach. He played in the NFL. He's 6'1", if I remember correctly, 200 some pounds. A normal human being compared to Nick Evans, sure, that might be able to be called an assault. But Haran O'Neal and Nick Evans are not that widely.
There's no way Coach O is 200 pounds. He's a vegan. He must be 170, 180 on a good day.
No,
okay, whatever.
He's 200. He about 6'2", 200.
He's somewhere in that range. Regardless, the point is he's not a feeble old man like some people are trying to say, Krish. Also, my information is that he was one of the instigators of that fight. So for people to come out and say that he got assaulted and we don't have evidence of who started the fight, either side, for the record, because if you look at the video, they only catch the fight after it has started. We have no idea what happened at the beginning of that fight, and people are making accusations, assumptions based on a little snippet after the fight had already happened. So yes, Nick Evans did push Ron O'Neal. There's zero doubt about that. It's shown on camera. Not going to sit here and condone his actions because obviously, as Krish said, you never should be putting hands on a coach if you're a player. It doesn't matter what the scenario is. You're probably going to face some retribution for that from the league, as you should. But at the same time, as with anything that's involved in a league like this, it needs to be investigated. Both sides need to be heard out. And if appropriate, there needs to be actions leveled on both sides of the fight, not just an assumption based on a video. So that's the big thing is us as fans, we don't necessarily know the whole story. You know, we know what we're shown. And that video came out earlier this week, and it quite frankly does not show the beginning of it. And I went on and actually asked around about this because I was curious if any of the fans saw what actually transpired before this. And nobody really did. Nobody from the Southwest Kansas side saw exactly what happened. So basically, from a fan's perspective, it looks like, you know, a fight just erupted as everybody were walking into the locker rooms. But regardless of how or why it happened, obviously, like we mentioned a moment ago, this is not something you want to see as a fan. You know, it puts a bad name on any league. It's something that we wish we could avoid on a grander scale because obviously it's a negative event. You know, nobody wants to see the fight. Nobody wants to see either team have potential suspensions come down due to that. You know, because this is the playoff stretch. There's literally one game left, and these two teams have to play each other in Salina this weekend. So that's a big deal. I mean, you know, if it was this chippy in this game, what's it going to look like this upcoming week? I would imagine that we get a statement at some point either today or I mean, I hope it would be today or maybe it's at the beginning of the broadcast tomorrow that some sort of action has been taken by the league, and we'll figure out exactly what that is. But it's going to be interesting to see exactly how this all works out. On top of the fight, the end of the game was bizarre to say the least. So I wanted to get your guys' thoughts on that. Coach, you've been around the game for a long time. You were in the AFL last year, so you have a good idea how the rules work and all of that. Have you ever seen a situation where a team intercepts a pass, 1 second left on the clock, and then a defensive penalty eliminates that interception and leads to a win for the other team?
No. That interception, you still get to do that 1 second play after that. It should have been an interception, and they should have ran back to play after that. Should have got at least one play off. From what my recollections is, I think that's what should have happened. Only the right way to happen because you can't end the game on a controversy like that. That's what stirred up the rowdiness anyway. You can't. We got to have the referees knowing the actual rules too. Leagues got to start vetting their referees. They got to start making sure. I think the week before a game, Thursday or Friday, the lead and the coaches, the two head coaches, should be sitting down with the referees in a 1 hour meeting, making sure everything is right. Are they going over there all on the same page? We got to start properly vetting both sides of the arena. You know what I mean? So if you had that type of stuff, we had the call right, it wouldn't have been controversy. And again, like you said, at no point in no time should no player touch a coach. I don't care how emotional you is. I'm one of the most emotional players I ever was. You can ask Coach O. I played for him. But my mama taught me one thing: respect. You don't disrespect your elders. I don't care who it is. And some of these players now, they have no respect. Us coaches, we got to start implementing that. Name one time. I don't care who the player is. You can have one of the worst, the most craziest players in the league. If he would have went to San Jose or Nashville with Coach Harbett, I guarantee I don't care what happens. He's not touching the coach or he's not getting out of hand. Am I right or wrong?
I mean, I don't recall any fights by Nashville this season, so.
And it's Chris. We had this talk last year. He said, "Man, what you say? Some of the guys you bringing in, there might be problems." What I tell you, problem on my team will send his ass right home. Sorry for my language, but I will buy you a bus ticket. You will not fly. I will get you a Greyhound ticket and show you just how much you mean to me and send you home. You got to establish that as a coach from the jump. No fighting, no disrespecting an adult. You going to do what we say. If you don't like a call, every call ain't meant to be for us. You going to respect that. And if one of my players ever touch a coach or start a brawl where it dictates what my game is, you better be ready to have your stuff packed. I don't care if you was right or wrong, because at the end of the day, it affects my brand.
That's a fair point. Fair point for sure. Krish, what were your thoughts on the end of the game there?
You know, Coach Thomas is my boy, man, and I know he's probably watching. But late game situation, man, he turns into a polar bear sometimes. Honestly, I think he just freezes. I mean, this is two games, man. Oregon and Salina. And I don't want to hear, you know, I know that last call was bad. That was horrible. That was a bad call. That was the wrong decision. Bro, you got 7 touchdowns put on your ass by Javen Kilgo, bro. Not even Rakeem Cato. Javen Kilgo. You can't even be mad. That defense got exposed bad. And I know, you know, people are going to be like, oh, well, you know, it was a tough game back and forth. Nah, you had that game in the breadbasket. But that, to me, shows you don't trust your center and your O-line as a whole to not run the ball, right? Because, you know, the positive yardage rule in the AF1, right? Coach B, right? You have to get, you know, the yardage to keep the clock going. So, I don't know, man. It's hard for me to watch, you know, late game. I know Coach Thomas, like I said, he's trying to build a culture, but you got to be late game situation, man. I want to know what his record is when there's 1 minute left. You know, that's huge, and that's going to come in playoff time. Am I wrong? When you play a team like Coach Arbet, Coach Payton and them, and Coach Lachlan and all those great coaches in Nashville, you got to be ready, man. You got to be on your P's and Q's. And so that Southwest team, man, they showed me. They got exposed, honestly. And so they have to bounce back tomorrow night. But I was really worried to see that because, again, second time this has happened. You should have beat Oregon, and now you should beat Salina. Yeah, I mean, it's hard, but I don't know, man. I think Coach Thomas is going to learn. He's only a second-year pro coach, right? And so he's going to learn late-game clock management. But it's just confusing. I don't know what happens. I think he just freezes. I've seen coaches freeze before, but I legitimately think he just freezes. And he's like, there's so much going on. I mean, where are the assistant coaches? I put accountability on the assistant coaches, right? I hear great things about Jason Sheck and that defense. I think he does a great job, but why is he not in Coach Thomas's ear? Hey, run the ball, right? Your assistant coaches need to take more accountability. So it's disappointing. Dark times in Southwest Kansas for sure.
Right. Dark times. Second in the league. Dark times. Terrible situation in Southwest Kansas. I can't believe they're 7-5. Terrible, man. Anyway, I will say that I find it very funny that Coach Thomas is catching so much flack for this game. The reason being, everybody since he's gotten in the league for 2 years straight has been like, that's not an AFL offense. That is not an AFL offense. He runs the ball too much. He doesn't throw the ball enough. I've heard it countless times, so many times I can't even count it, because there's been people who are criticizing it since the very beginning. He loses, throws the ball 3 times at the end of the game, and then catches flack for the fact that he's throwing the ball too much late in the game.
No, he was trying to catch the defense off guard. That's what he was trying to do. It was obvious, right? He was trying. Yes, he was. He was trying to. What was he not? He was trying to get the first down and win the game. That's what
he wasn't trying to catch the defense off guard. Go back and look at that game. He was sticking with what worked all game long. I mean, if you look back, that was one of the highest pass outputs for the Southwest Kansas Storm all season long. Jalen Morton threw it 32 times, had 4 touchdown passes in the game, had one of his highest completion rates the entire season long, 59.4%. You talked about him having a poor completion rate earlier this season, correct? So you know that he completed about 13% more of his passes in this game that he has on average throughout the season. He threw the ball more than he ran for, one of the few times this season as well. So in my mind, he's sticking with what's working. He was moving the ball all game long via the passing attack. He didn't transition to the run because he believed in his quarterback. He believed in his offense to be able to, pick up a yard or two in three different pass attempts. So does it look bad? Absolutely. But everything looks bad when you don't have the context for the situation. If you're looking at strictly that last minute, sure, it looks like a poor decision. When you look at the full scope of the whole game and you realize, hey, they threw the ball more in this game than they have all season long. The rushing attack really wasn't moving the ball like it had been in previous weeks. I mean, they literally had 34 rushing yards on 10 attempts all game long. And yes, they ran 3 touchdowns in, but at the same time, that stuff matters is all I'm saying, So I definitely understand the criticism. Obviously, there are 3 games this season where the Southwest Kansas Storm have lost by a combined 7 points. Doesn't look good, obviously. And I'm not going to sit here and sugarcoat things. I think at the end of the day, those close games are often decided by coaching. But I will wholeheartedly stand by Coach Thomas and what they're doing in Southwest Kansas because I think that there's logic behind what he did.
Did I not say a week ago? I said if he won this game, he clinches Coach of the Year, right? I think he's done a great job with the program. But at the end of the day, I got to be critical of the little things, man. I don't, I tell Coach B all the time, man. I don't. How can I say this appropriately? I'm actually not going to say it. But, I hold every coach to the same standard, and he's held to a standard too. So you got to execute late game. That's not going to work in the playoffs. It won't. So.
Well, not every coach because you'll sugarcoat anything Mass does, but that's okay.
He does. He sugarcoats anything Mass does.
Right.
But to say this, Sam, 7-5 in a lead that's been shaky this year, that's still not good to me because I feel like the way Southwest started, they should only have lost 2 or 3 games. 3 of those games shouldn't have been lost. And it came down to coaching and decisions. And that's with us being young coaches as well. I say that about Coach Thomas because he came in with me and he was trying to do something different. So he's still learning his niche, Critch. You got to get him to learn his niche. He came from JUCO to Arena. That's a big step. So once he get the feel, and I think he's doing a great job. They have one of the biggest coaching staffs in Arena football right now. So it's just down to them connecting the dots and the X's and O's.
I actually misspoke there, 7-4. That's my mistake. I apologize. But one more game left to go, and thanks to a Nashville loss to Billings, they are still in the driver's seat for the second position. But we're going to transition to a little bit of other news with them. Dylan Burkhart, their kicker, announced that this will be his last season. Dylan has been a part of the Southwest Kansas Storm since their inaugural season in 2021, or 2022. So I apologize. So he'll be stepping away from the game after this season. Obviously, always love to see a player go out on his own terms. It sounds like Dylan's got a lot of other great stuff going on in his life outside of football and kind of just has to focus on that stuff moving forward, which I think every player at this level eventually gets to that point where they have to make some tough decisions. And it looks like from the outside looking in, this is one of those situations where it's a tough decision, but he's I believe a special ed coach, if I remember correctly. So he's got some big things that he's going to be doing outside of football moving forward. So congratulations to Dylan on a great career. Wish you nothing but success in your next endeavors.
Congrats, Dylan.
Any other AF1 subjects we should discuss before we move on?
Yeah, no, I got nothing, man. Oh, yeah, we didn't talk about Shiloh. You want to talk about your boy Shiloh Flanagan being out for Southwest? I mean, that's a huge, huge loss.
Yeah, obviously a big loss. I mean, Shiloh Flanagan done for the season. It sounds like he got injured in this past game. obviously a big deal. He's one of the top 3 wideouts in the league, or not the league, sorry, on the team, which they rotate between the 3 wideouts quite a bit: Demarius Washington, Charles Hall. Obviously, I would like to say that I think Southwest Kansas has a pretty crop of wide receivers. With, as I just mentioned, you've got Charles Hall there still. You've got Demarius Washington as well. You also have Jairus Grissom, who, with the re-signing of Matt Struck, is most likely going to be seeing some more snaps at wide receiver. Played some receiver in college. So it definitely is going to be interesting, but they are a little bit short on depth at wide receiver currently. It would be a good idea for them to get one more receiver in there, I think, for the stretch run, but we'll see exactly what they do moving forward.
I don't know why. I don't know if they signed a receiver this week. I would think, if I was the coach, that would be my priority, to sign a receiver, right? You're short. I mean, I know Coach Thomas, he loves his boy Jairus. He'll go to war for Jairus Grissom. He loves Jairus. Jairus can do no wrong in Coach Thomas's eyes, but he can't get vertical. I promise you, he can't get vertical.
Some of the stuff you say, I wonder if you just you put any thought into it before it comes out of your mouth, but that's okay.
He said, I have a video of him on rebound off the net, and Josh Cox, if he's watching, he said, don't sleep on Jairus for the starting quarterback job. When they had Kozart, Kozart and Morton. Like, he legitimately said, don't sleep on Grisham. Like, I was shocked when he said that. I said,
when did he say that, though?
He said that in right before the season, like a month. Like,
have they even reported to camp yet?
No, but how can you say?
Oh, okay.
A guy who can't throw it a 10-yard out can start over an NFL quarterback. Like, that's insane. But whatever.
Again, context, Krish. He hadn't even seen him in person yet. So I mean,
I don't know, man.
Didn't he kind of tell us how he feels about Grissom signing Struck?
I mean, he loves his boys. I respect it. Especially with Todd Athey too. Todd Athey can come in, be a tax write-off for 1 week, and then dip back into hibernation. So that's what it is.
Todd Athey, I think, is another one of those guys that had some stuff going on outside of football and had to step away. I mean, I don't think he was ready to retire. He was at the peak of his career, having a really good season last year, and ultimately had to make some tough decisions as well. But I mean, like I said, I think some of the statements you're making are pretty harsh and very black and white when it's not a black and white scenario. So I think you got to give him some credit over there in Southwest Kansas, because obviously he's doing something right. Once again, I will point out they have the second most wins in the league, behind only Albany, by the way, who has only played 10 games. So, we could say whatever we want about his decisions, the team, whatever you might want to say. The results speak for themselves. So,
playoff success matters, though. You can win, you can go. I've seen teams go 15-1. You can lose the first round of the playoffs. So I'm really looking forward to next weekend's game, and that's going to tell me a lot about where that franchise is as a whole.
Right. I completely agree. But again, everybody is sitting here criticizing the guy who currently has the second best record in the league. It's just funny to hear. I mean, like, where's the same criticism for Coach O? Where's the same criticism for Cedric Walker? Where's the same criticism for Darren Arbette? We've made all these points about how Coach Thomas is a second-year arena football coach, but nobody gives him the benefit of the doubt.
I do give criticism to Coach Arbette. I do give criticism to Coach Walker, especially with Stephen Titus giving him all the tools that he need up there. It's no excuse why everybody talked this big billings in the AFL last year and this year, and it's two different teams. I don't care what you're talking about. Recruiting is recruiting. A player gonna want to come and play with you, whether it's $1,000 or $200. So it's all about what you're doing up there. Obviously, they wasn't doing what they were supposed to do in Billings and other places to retain some of these players and to get them to buy in. So it comes down to the coaching. Arbette's been gone from the game for a long time, so I do give him a pass. His style with these new, what you call the YNs, might not mix altogether. So he needs time to correlate and adapt to the young version and the young generation of players, because it's totally different than what he's used to. but I do not give slack to those older coaches. And I actually, that was one of the questions I talked to Chris about yesterday. Why do we keep recuperating the same old coaches instead of giving other coaches, newer coaches, a chance? And why do we use this brotherhood of, oh, it's who I know, or I'm gonna let my friend get a job instead of hiring the right coaches or vetting or developing younger coaches? I think all the older coaches should move to GM and presidential roles in leagues and front office, which will give us help around the league, more stability because they know the game and know what to expect. And it's time to start letting coaches like myself and Coach Thomas and all those other guys get in and do it because we paid our dues just like Walker and them, and it's time for us to get in.
No, I
And
completely agree.
like I said, like this is no shade at Coach Thomas. You know, a lot of respect. I've said this before. I'm just gonna, I'm gonna be hard on people that I'm fans of. So I said to someone last week, I said Coach Thomas, he's gonna interview for the Iowa Barnstorming job in the offseason, and he's gonna interview for the Nashville Cat job if that becomes open. So I don't put anything. He'll say he's committed to Southwest. I'm telling you, he's gonna be interviewing for a lot of jobs in the offseason. So I would not be surprised if he's the next head coach of the Iowa Barnstormers next year.
I'm not even sure where you get some of the stuff you say sometimes, like I said, but maybe you know something I don't. I don't know honestly on that. But no, I mean honestly, I think you make a good point. Coach Arbett has been out of the game for a long time. I do like the staff he's built around him because they've all been in the leagues. Over the past couple seasons. I think Chris McKinney's the offensive coordinator there, correct? Which he's been in the NAL for many years. So, I mean, obviously he knows how to play the arena style, and obviously they're kind of catching their stride, but it's just kind of funny all year long. Again, I'm biased. I'm a Southwest Kansas fan. So, it's been, oh, well, Southwest Kansas won this game because such and such needed a better quarterback. Wait a minute. Who recruited that quarterback for that team? Who decided that he was the right player for them to go into the season with, and then who then lost by that quarterback? But yet at the same time, Coach Thomas and his staff recruited Jalen Morton, who's potential offensive player of the year for the league. They recruited all these other players and did so with a small town team that has zero draw outside of playing football. So I mean, there's something to be said about what they've done, is all I'm saying.
And it's impressive. And Nashville, imagine if you had Nashville's payroll. Like, let's just be real. Coach B, we talked about this. A guy like Shaquille Holiness, he doesn't play for 400.
I don't know. I think they spending money in Southwest. I think they got one of the higher end payrolls in Southwest, just being honest with you. And to back that up, what you said, Sham, they've been around just because it's the Storm. That Southwest team has been around since the 2012 or 2013 season. So that town has been used to football. That's not a new football town. So I don't give them no slack. They are a football town, been around when we was in the CIF and the CPIFL. So they know football out there. There's no people will come there to play football just like they come to play Billings, Montana. So it's no excuse. Wherever I was in Council Bluff, Iowa. You can recruit anywhere. So it ain't about where you at. It's about what the staff you put around you, what your front office give you, and what you are as a coach, what you do with it.
I know for a fact, Coach B, though, my last thing about Southwest Kansas, Salina has a higher payroll than Southwest Kansas. I can confirm that. I've been told by multiple sources Salina has a higher payroll than Southwest Kansas, and it's significantly higher.
They both got great ownership groups, so I wouldn't put it past neither one of them.
That's fair. I look across the league, and let's be honest, Albany has the highest payroll. It's not even close, right? So Nashville's probably close second, or not close second, but a second. There's probably a bit of a gap there. I would imagine Billings, based on some of the moves that they've made as of late, are pretty high up there, obviously. You don't bring in guys like Malik Henry, Darius Prince, Dwayne Hollis, unless you're spending some money. I think Orlando was set to have a really high pay rate or payroll, and that's part of the reason why they decided to back out. Salina, they definitely have some higher paid players. I'm guessing your guy Cato is not playing for cheap either. Could be wrong.
No, hey, that's one thing I can say. Cato don't ask for a lot of money. And Chris, can you attest to that?
I
I
think,
got
he
I
depends.
got
It's
Cato
performance
both years
based.
on the league minimum. Am I not lying?
No, you're not lying, but like he's a performance based player. I mean, if he
Yeah.
performs well, he's gonna want his bread. I mean, that's normal, right?
That's fair.
I
That's
know
fair.
Malik Honeycutt doesn't play for change either. So
Shahan Williams as well. That's another player who he's bounced around a little bit this year, but he's more of an expensive guy as well. So, I mean, there's a lot of players on a lot of these rosters that are expensive players or highly paid. Corpus Christi when Southwest Kansas played him, Darius Prince, Dwayne Hollis, Fred Payton. They had a pretty stacked roster that is now spread out throughout the league because of their monetary issues. But
I take this back. Corpus Christi had the highest payroll to start the season off, I think. I
I don't
do.
know about that.
From some of the guys I heard what they were getting paid. Oh yeah.
I'll take your word for that. I never really heard any hard numbers from Corpus Christi, but it wouldn't shock me. I mean, they had Darius Prince, which is, obviously I would imagine one of the highest paid players in any league, just based on his abilities and what he's able to bring to a team. But
I was told by DP last year when I was in Iowa, he doesn't move for less than $2,800.
This might be a little bit of a hot take, but I mean, if you get to a point in your career where you can command that kind of money as a player, do it. If people pay you, there's a reason for it. So, I mean, in my mind, get your money, Darius Prince, because honestly, you have built yourself a reputation as one of the best in any league, and you've earned every penny you get. So I personally think that if teams are willing to pay you that, good for you, because you honestly, I mean, you're an exciting player to watch. I think I can count, on one hand how many players fly over the wall on a weekly basis, and Darius Prince is definitely one of those guys. He puts his body on the line on a week in, week out basis, returns kicks, has played some DB, all these different things. So, like I said, I have no qualms about him making that money. I hope he is getting paid like that. And honestly, if I'm being quite honest, I would like to see a lot more players paid like that. Arena football is more exciting than outdoor football, in my opinion. And then on top of that, you have to consider that these guys are putting themselves at risk on a weekly basis. Like I said, flying over the wall into, concrete or chairs or whatever it may be on the other side, getting caught by fans sometimes. So I think that's something to be said. Those guys deserve to be paid accordingly in my mind. But
I think they should be in a minimum $500 for any arena league, even the lowest tier 3 should be minimum $500 a player, because some of these players got to feed their families. They're leaving jobs to come in to do this. I think it's just adequate, like you said. Some places don't have proper treatment or setup for them to recover their body, and they still go out week in, week out, going over that wall. I don't think people understand that wall is like two NFL defenses hitting you at one time. So the wear and tear that an arena player has on their body, I think they should be compensated for it. And it's hard to sell in arena football. So if you got good players who bring tickets, compensate them for it.
no, I'm a firm believer that, and Darius Prince definitely commands some attention no matter where he plays. And like I said, he's an exciting player. He is one of the best in the game in terms of, being able to concentrate on the ball and catch it going over the wall and make acrobatic plays and all that stuff. So I definitely agree with you on that. If they're bringing fans in, they need to be paid accordingly regardless. But we have a comment from Wookie here that I think this is part of the reason why I said Krish says some crazy things. Doesn't Coach Thomas have a day job in Dodge City? I think he's fairly tied to that city. He actually runs a company, and he's the county commissioner in Dodge City. So I would be willing to bet he's not leaving the city anytime soon. Maybe he gets a sweetheart deal somewhere.
No. If the Iowa Barnstormers, a historic franchise, hit his line and be like, hey, we need you, he's not going to say, oh, no. He's not going to turn that down right away. He's going to at least interview for the job. I'm just throwing it out there, man. Coach Thomas is a man. He's going to make the right decision for him and his family. But all this, like, I'm committed to the city, that can change. People talk. So I look forward to seeing him in the Iowa Barnstormers coaching uniform next year.
Like I said, you say some crazy things. I mean, that would have to be a really high offer for him to walk away from a business he runs and a county commissioner position, which is, obviously city government. So maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. Maybe he gets a crazy deal from some team, but I mean, honestly, I wouldn't be shocked. If I'm being quite honest, I would not be shocked if an IFL team or an NAL team saw what he's doing in Southwest Kansas and called him and saw if he would consider moving. Maybe he does actually go to the extent of interviewing for another job. I just don't see him moving on from Dodge City because of what we just mentioned. But Wookie also brings up another good point. I think pay needs to be at a minimum around $750 to $1,000 for players. Even there, that's barely paying bills and feeding families. I agree to a certain extent. I think obviously I don't.
I agree. I totally agree.
I don't want to necessarily sacrifice team stability. So I think maybe there should be still a tier system, like maybe the bottom leagues are paying a minimum like of 500, like Coach B said. And then you move up from there. But at the same time, I think that we need to look at the other aspects of what a team is able to offer. Like back in the day when you played in the AFL, it was essentially a given that when you signed with a team, you not only got your playing roster pay, but then you turned around and also were basically handed a job, typically, as
Incentives.
well as a lot of guys.
Yeah, we got incentivized checks, but back in the day, they people did a lot of marketing too. They were able to go find a sponsor to actually help fund payroll or something like that. People don't do that no more. Last year, I tried to go get a sponsor just to help for an incentive package for players. And that's where you help players too. You want to be able to, if I'm only paying you so much, I want to be able to incentivize you and get you some other type of payment or form. So I do think 500 for tier 3 leagues is good. AFL, AF1, and IFL should be between 750 and 1,000. NAL on down should be between 500 and 750 a game. And it comes to, if you want to pay these players like this, what they need to be paid, then you need to start paying full-time year-round staffs in your front office to go out and do the marketing to get the dollars you need to do this type of stuff. Quit half grabbing, using interns. You use interns for your game day operations and little stuff around there, but you need to pay a front office. And I always say if a arena team I think is going to be around, they'll show me by hiring front office staff and actually giving them hourly or salary pay, not working off commission and stuff like that.
No, I think that's a good point. And I'm curious, I mean, you obviously have a better lay of the land than I do or Krish does in this scenario, but what do you think it would take for a team to hire on a full-time, person for sales and make it worth their while, whether through incentives or through, just straight pay to be able to do that?
You need to offer a good commission. I think Coach B can agree with this, right? Like, I know Cedar Rapids
salary plus commission.
Exactly. I mean, Cedar, Rick Kranz, Coach Kranz in Cedar Rapids, I know he's making good commission. He's always made good commission, right? He works off of high commission prices. And so that's what he requires because he's such a good seller. You know what I mean? So I think if you want to run a legit program, you got to give your employees at least 30 to 40% of commission, right? And I know that sounds high, but if you want to hire the best of the best, I'm not saying hire a kid out of college. So, Coach, I want to ask you this, right? You talk about interns, right? Your St. Joe Goats just went out and hired a whole new front office. And from my perspective, a lot of the people in that front office look like younger folks. What do you think? They all intern.
Yeah. That's all intern. So they did the right part. Most of their front office in the marketing and stuff like that, you do use interns. But when it comes to your corporate sales and your big sponsorships, those are the guys you want to give 25 to 30%. Everybody else under that, with the food and lower sponsorships, you give a lower percentage. But for your front office, your head of marketing and sales guy, he should be a salary based or an hourly employee. If he's salary, that's good. If he's hourly, he still should get a commission on the side to be able to run that, because nobody can live off sales and commission year round just as their only job. So you have to be able to compensate and correlate with that. I think we got to start paying our head of media, our head of marketing and sales, uh, our president, our GMs need to be full-time employees. So you can go out and get the marketing dollars that you actually need to run an arena team. If people are full-time employees and they're actually getting paid, and they feel like they're wanted, I think you'll go out and sell more. You'll go out and do more in the community. You'll go out and get more because you feel like you're wanted more.
No, I firmly agree on that. And I think that's one thing that, we've gotten away from over the past couple of years since the AFL really shut down and came back. And honestly, I think that's the future of these leagues. And, you see teams like, again, I'm going to use a reference that people are going to make me think or make people think I'm an Omaha Beef fan. But, I from what I understand, Ricky Burtz focuses on the beef, for the vast majority of the year, or at least the vast majority of the season before and after. So with that in mind, you see how Omaha runs, and they have, a ton of sponsorships. They have,
They year round, Sam. Year
exactly.
round, they're in the office. They have their secretary is paid year round hourly.
Exactly. So I personally think that's a good model for long-term success for any franchise. And I think that's something that, more teams need to look at. But at the same time, it has to be sustainable for both sides, right? So that's definitely another factor that we need to look at. But Wookie also says, I'm coming from a sport where I was making $250 a week when I first started, and that quickly became untenable. Wookie, for anybody who doesn't know, he runs a YouTube channel. I highly recommend go check out Wookie Drives. He is very deep into the automotive world. I believe he's talking about his experience in NASCAR, where he was involved in, some teams along the way. So, I mean, it's interesting to hear that they're also paying, wages like that. Sponsors don't like working with interns. That is also accurate, and I'm glad that you brought that up. NASCAR commissions for sponsors run anywhere from 7 to 20%. All of those numbers make sense if you have some sort of other salary on top of it. So I definitely understand that. And I think a lot of teams need to have clear-cut responsibilities for each position and set it up in a manner to where if you do get a commission, it's on top of what you're doing. But at the same time, you could realistically offer a commission to anybody in the franchise, on top of their current role to sell some sponsors, give them incentive to go out there and try and find sponsors while also, giving them some sort of other role where they're just getting straight pay for what they're doing for the team as well. So that's definitely another factor here. But we've spent a lot of time on AF1, a lot more time than I was anticipating. So we're going to hit a quick commercial break, and then we'll come right back. We'll discuss some TAL information with Coach B here, and then we'll go ahead and move on to the NAL. And then to close out today's episode, I did not put this in the description or anything. We have a pre-recorded interview with head coach of the Sioux City Bandits, Herb Strobing. So we will close out the show with that today. We will discuss, that obviously the NAL championship game, a couple other things with the NAL before we let that go. And up next is the TAL. So stick with us. If you haven't done so already, hit that like button, comment, follow us wherever you're watching. Help us continue to grow. And we'll be right back.
Get in the game at BetUS, America's favorite sports book. Over 50 sports, live betting, online casino, horse racing, esports, and more. Start now and enjoy easy deposits, fastest payouts, and the biggest bonuses. And for over 25 years, BetUS is a name you can trust. Mention TV 150 now and get up to 150% in bonuses. BetUS, we've got your game. Call or visit BetUS.
All right, check out our sponsors to help support independent media. This stuff is not cheap, believe it or not. So would really appreciate any support on that end. They help keep us functional and going on an every week basis so we can continue to bring you guys all the latest news, such as Duluth being able to find a victory last week, despite the fact that their head coach was suspended. Coach O'Neill, I hope you're watching still. Honestly, I'm going to go ahead and start off on this one, and I'm impressed. I know that Duluth has a solid staff. I think they're a great team. I know they've got a lot of talent, but for any team to lose their head coach to a suspension like that and still be able to find a victory, regardless of how that victory happened, I think you got to give some kudos to the rest of the staff. They were obviously highly prepared for the game at hand, and I think that comes from the top down. So
I
there's
give
flowers,
kudos.
Coach O'Neill.
I give kudos to Coach O'Neill. I give kudos to Duluth. But I will say, this is the third time straight we get the same referees from the playoff game, from the game where they overturned the Lunker score and beat us in Springfield last year. The same refs. And Tony said it best. If y'all looked at Tony O'Neill's post, he said you can never leave it up to those referees because they're gonna always go against the goats. So when I'm honestly, I'm starting to think that the TAL needs to start vetting their referees because some of the calls they're making are not the right calls and they're not going against with the rule book. But I cannot say nothing to Tony and them. They won. No matter what the outcome is, they won without their head coach. They did a hell of a job. But I will say, it's something about them referees who not like the goats.
I would definitely agree. There was some definite controversy in this game, and I don't think anybody would argue that, anybody who watched it. But at the same time, like you said, at the end of the day, you win or lose on your own accord. If the refs become involved, it's because, the team didn't do enough, or vice versa. They did too much in terms of penalties and stuff like that. So I definitely think that I love the way you looked at that. Like at the end of the day, you got to play to keep it out of the refs' hands if you want to control your own destiny, right? And leave it up to no question at the end, and then the refs can't be a factor. But Krish, what are your thoughts on this? I know you're a big Duluth fan as of late, so I'm curious. And I mean no shade by that. I mean, Duluth's a great team, so just saying.
Yeah, I'm not a Duluth fan, by the way. I've never claimed to be a Duluth fan. So I don't want to act like I'm, homie hopping or what Coach O'Neill, I know you're watching, man. You said I hop meat to meat, but that's not me, man. Like, I pick a road and go with it. But anyway, so I think, look, I want to give St. Joe so much credit, man. I mean, Dylan Van Boxel, they went and signed him on a short notice. He doesn't fit the 7-on-7 game. I'm sorry, Dylan, you don't. That's just not his play style, and that's fine. He's not mobile at all. I mean, he's kind of mobile, but like he's more stationary since his injury. So for me, they had Angelo Trujillo, the DB, step up and play quarterback. He was playing both ways, and they lost by 1 point. I got to give that kid so much credit for stepping up and playing quarterback, and then having to go one-on-one against Dan Williams, a 3-year NFL vet. So he deserves
Not
so much
even
credit.
that, Chris. Angelo is an actual quarterback. That's what he plays. That's his natural
Right.
position. We turned him into a DB. And not only that, we had Boo Smith and Ryan Martinez playing defensive back, and our starting linebacker is out for the season with a tore ACL after the second quarter.
Right.
So
A lot going on, and they fought.
one thing I
this
can
one.
say,
Right.
Tony and them build a hell of a program. I love the way he run this program. I love
Yeah.
Tony to death. What they do up there, how he be his own man, and I love the way his owner lets him be him and do it the right way. So
Right.
I never take discredit what Tony and them doing in Duluth. So I big ups to Duluth Harbor Monsters. Y'all the defending champions. Y'all did what y'all was supposed to do. Y'all took advantage of every situation that was put on the table, and y'all came out with the dub. That's how you build a championship caliber team.
Right. Yeah. No, you find ways to win, and I totally understand that. But like for me, a guy like Dan Williams, Jamal Couch, like their presence in that locker room kind of gets overlooked. When you're a guy and you're coming into Duluth and you think you're hot shit and you have to go against a 4-year NFL vet, a guy who's established, right? It makes you better. Right? Because you're going against the best of the best. And so for them to go out and sign a guy like that was huge for them. Coach Tony mentioned it in a previous interview, like getting a guy who had that experience so players can follow. And I think that's a huge move for them to be able to get him in that locker room. He's a great guy. I love Dan Williams. But, no, I mean, look, I think Coach Tony, Ben McCoy, right? I mean, that's my guy. Like, they built a good program. I can't take anything away from them. But tonight, it's going to be a challenge. Hot Springs Wise guys are coming in hot. I know my boy Bones is ready. Bones is one of the best coaches in this league. So, I think it's exciting. And Duluth is the Kansas City Chiefs. So, till they lose, I can't take anything away from them. And good teams find ways to win. So, we're about to see tonight, for sure.
Hold on. We are the Kansas City Chiefs. At the end of the day, we had the best record in the TAL last year. We lost 2 games. We are the team to beat in the TAL. Just because they won a shit, you got to realize we're 2-1 against Duluth. We own them still. Let's get that correct.
I don't know, man. I love you, Coach B, but y'all about to go 0-3 tonight. You're losing to Eau Claire. I'm sorry, man. It's going to be hard. It'll be hard to overcome.
Well, hold on a sec. Didn't Eau Claire just lose their quarterback?
Which one?
Kobe Gatson, who's now in Washington?
Yeah, Tay got rid of Kobe after week 1. He moved to Wade Freeman, dual threat. He's a better passer too. So Eau Claire is good. And he got. I know I can't say much, but Tay got some Louis luggage coming in on the way. So yeah, he's turned over there.
All right. I don't know about that term, man. Calling players luggage. I'm just saying you might wanna find a new one there. That might offend somebody.
Dion said it. Dion said I got my Louis luggage, so I'm just taking it from Dion.
Yeah, and Dion says a lot of things. Actually, that's probably the person you resemble the most.
Dion meant when he said he got his Louis luggage, he wasn't talking about players. He was talking about his game plan to turn around the landscape. He brung his luggage, he brung his game plan. And them players was part of that game plan. They wasn't the luggage though, baby.
Yeah, that's like I said, I just it feels weird calling players luggage to me, and that's just me. I'm very old school when it comes to the way I talk. So any other TAL subjects you guys want to cover before we move on?
I want to ask this question. What do you think so far of the talent-wise, what the TL is bringing this year opposed to last year?
I want to start off on this one. I am thoroughly impressed at the level of competition, the level of talent, even honestly the level of coaching that the TAL has been able to gather together. I wish that every first and second year league was run as well as the TAL is. And I know that there's been some issues with the TAL this season, but they jumped on it. They got involved immediately. And from everything that I can see from the outside looking in, again, I don't have any inside information outside of, what Coach B tells us on the show. It seems like the TAL has it figured out. I've had players ask me, which league do you think is going to be around 5-10 years from now? And I have a hard time not seeing the TAL around long term. The business model makes sense. The financial side of things makes sense. And ultimately, on top of all of that, it's well produced. The games are pretty well done. I know they've had, some issues here and there. I think Iowa at one point did not have an announcer for their first game of the season or something like that. But at the same time, on a larger grand scale, it just seems like there's less first and second year bumps in the road for the TAL than we've seen in other leagues. And whether that's the AFL, the AF1, the NAL, with all the stuff that they've had going on over the past couple of years, or if you really want to compare them to another first year league, the ENTFLA, it's night and day. It's night and day. So my hat goes off to everybody in the TAL. I don't know if there's any one person. I know there's not any one person with the league that can take all of the credit for all of that. But what you guys have built with that league is thoroughly impressive from an arena football fan standpoint. But I'll kick the ball over to Krish and let him take his 2 cents.
Right, so the TAL is a great league. And I want to touch on the level of parity. I feel like each week you never know who's going to win. And I know Coach Tony, man, he got a little upset when I said this. I said the competition is going to be better this year. He's like, no, it's not. Nah, come on, man. Like, it's really good. Y'all were down 32-6. The Iowa Woo, you came back and won. But it shows any team can win any week, right? St. Joe had a Lorenzo Thompson wide open in the end zone for a 2-point conversion. He just missed him, right? That could have changed the course of that game. But again, it's like every week you never know who's going to win, and I think that's great for the league. I also want to point out that this morning some big news came out. Duluth is moving on from Javonte Johnson as their starting quarterback, and so he'll still be on the team. But Hassan Brockman is getting the start tonight at quarterback. So I'm excited to see Hassan from start to finish, how he can put together a good game, and I think that's huge for him. So, again, every week changes are happening. It's just amazing. I think it's really good. I think this is a really good league. I love it. I know some of our guys in our little arena chat just discovered the TAL yesterday, and now they're the biggest fans. So, I've been watching the TAL since day one. So just so let's clear that up before you see other creators trying to take credit for it. But now I love the TAL, and I'm a huge fan. Honestly, I watch every game, and I think it's amazing.
No, I completely agree. And honestly, I will say that you've been in on the TAL since day one, and it does seem like all of a sudden it's catching some steam. But I think a lot of people didn't realize or didn't know how to look at the TAL. They didn't know what it was going to be. The style of play kind of, turned a lot of people off. Oh, this is 6-man football. Oh, everybody can run out and catch a pass. Oh, you got to pitch the ball before, the quarterback can run and stuff like that. To me, that sets them apart. That gives you a reason to watch their gameplay versus the AFL1, the NAL, and the IFL, who are all 8-man leagues, even though they have their own tweaks on the rest of the rules. So to me, I think that's smart because obviously you set yourself apart. You give fans a reason to watch your game. Plus, on the flip side of things, strategically, from a coaching's perspective, I personally think that the TAL gameplay gives you so much more flexibility to get creative on offense and defense, for that matter, that I think it realistically brings a whole new element of game planning to play. So I think that because of that, it makes for a really, really solid product to watch, and it's very exciting. There's big plays, that and stuff like that. So I personally think that the TAL did it right. They set themselves apart from the other 15 arena football leagues that are out there right now. So that's what you got to do. If you're a fledgling league and you want to be able to build up a fan base and keep yourself around long term, you have to set yourself apart, and they've done it very well. Any other? Sorry, go ahead.
Chris been with us since the beginning. I actually told Chris when I was in talks with them and what we were gonna do. So he's like my ESPN when it comes. Even when we went from Council Bluff, from the AIF to the AFL, he was the first one to know. So I always keep him in the loop, and I don't think people took in what we did with Kansas City last year. If Chris can attest to this, they hired me and Dorsey a week before training camp, and we put that team together in 1 week, and we lost 2 games all season.
No, it's impressive. It's impressive for sure. And honestly, we appreciate that relationship that you and Krish have, by the way. Really appreciate you coming on every week and kind of giving us a peek behind the curtain sometimes when it comes to stuff like that, because it's nice to be able to have some context on why things are happening or what they're doing, and stuff like that. And honestly, like I said, I'm impressed, and I don't think that feeling's going to go away anytime soon by TAL. They're man, I mean, just seeing the pictures from Eau Claire, a first-year team, an expansion team, and seeing the field that they have set up, seeing the walls and everything, it just looked professional. It looked well done.
But even seeing our guy in the front row, Justin from our network, seeing him, I saw him turn into a fan within 2 quarters. You know what I mean? And so it shows if I'm the NAL, man, I'm gonna say that I think the TAL is a better product overall than the NAL, and I don't think that's honestly.
Our streams is bigger. Our streams is big. It's the second biggest streams on any indoor arena platform right now.
You're not wrong. I mean, there's a lot to like about the TAL. I mean, honestly, we could sit here and realistically kind of give them their flowers and talk them up all day. I mean, like I said, when I look at a football league, and my first concerns are always stability and long-term viability. And to me, the TAL has one of the best business plans to make teams solvent, and allow them to operate at potentially even in profit. So, I understand why there are investor groups trying to buy into these teams, even if it's a small percentage, because I can see a very clear path to profitability for some of these teams. So, I mean, I think that, they're very smart in bringing in guys like Tommy Benizio to kind of, give his 2 cents on how to properly run a league and a team. And I think that they've done it. They've done it to perfection so far. And like I said, I know there's been some bumps. There's going to be some bumps with any brand new league, so the fact that they have been able to find as much success as they have, and every game has been played as scheduled, I can't say enough about that. That's honestly the biggest deal in any league as far as I'm concerned. So, I'm not wearing a hat, but my hat's off to you guys in the TAL. I hope they see this as a league, because honestly, like, I can't speak highly enough about how it's panned out for them. Any final thoughts on the TAL before we transition? I've got one little piece of AIF news before we move on to the NAL. No? Cool. All right. Well, coming out of the AIF, it looks like the Cedar Rapids Titans, I almost said River Kings, have a new offensive coordinator and director of player personnel, and that is Maurice Dowse. He's been around for the past couple seasons, went to Ohio State, played for the Dayton Bulldogs, the Cincinnati Marshals, multiple different teams and leagues across the way. So he's definitely experienced. It's going to be interesting to see how he can kind of put some new wrinkles on that the Titans organization. I have such a hard time saying the Cedar Rapids Titans for some reason, but congratulations to Coach Dowse. We're excited to see what you can bring to the table for the Titans this season. Krish, I don't know if I ever got your thoughts. What are your thoughts on the rebrand for the Titans?
I think it's good. It's his name brand. I mean, the people in Iowa know what to expect. In terms of Mo D, he was with Amarillo last year. Obviously, he had they had some tough times on offense. So I'm hoping this is an opportunity for him to bounce back. Because last year in Amarillo was a train wreck overall. So I think this year, it's good for them to go to AIF. They can kind of start from scratch. That plan is not to be in the AIF long term. I really hope it's not. I hope they can move up and find a more sustainable league. I know the AIF looks sustainable on the outside, but I want to see them go NAL, TAL, honestly, something that's good. But no, I think it's good. I think Coach Cranes is going to have that arena rocking. I mean, again, he's great at sales. And so I'm looking forward to seeing that team this year.
Absolutely. We're going to hit a quick commercial break, and then we're going to come back with the NAL. As I mentioned before, we've got a couple subjects we're going to touch on live, and then there will be a pre-recorded interview, which we will play in its entirety, and then that will close out the show. So definitely stick with us for the next couple minutes. We got a little bit more for you before we get out of here today, and we're going to hit you with SeatGeek. Shout out to SeatGeek. If you are going to an event of any sort, check them out. Use our code Sam Shady.
SeatGeek is the ticketing app for fans like Boomstick Lady. No free throw is safe from the roar of her sticks. SeatGeek helps her find a seat in the direct eye line of the shooter so she can sit where her boomsticks make the biggest boom. Everybody okay? SeatGeek handles the tickets to sports, concerts, and more, so fans can fan.
In a world full of fakes, how do you avoid buying fake items that look just like the real thing? Are you getting faked over? Experts say it's all in the details.
All right, we are back. Thank you guys for sticking with us through the commercial breaks. I know they're annoying, but we got to do them. Got to help support the network here. So if you guys have any sort of needs from eBay, I definitely recommend checking out our links in the descriptions. If you need any links to any of our sponsors whatsoever to save yourself a couple bucks, make sure to reach out. We will definitely get you whatever you need. We've got plenty of sponsors for that reason. Actually, real quick, before we go to the NAL, I think we should probably do the betting segment. I didn't really think about that at the time. So, let's get into that real quick. Give me a second to pull up the betting pages. Any subjects or any games in particular sticking out to you from a betting perspective before I get this pulled up?
I have not seen all the lines yet. I when you pull up the lines, I'll have a better idea. I just want to bring up before, I know this might be somebody else's first time watching. I am 90-54 this year on my pick, so I am the most accurate picker in the industry. So I would take my betting advice, not with a grain of salt, but a grain of respect. So I'm excited.
Krish always wanted to pat himself on the back. I would also point out that in that pick'em that you're in, there are two people that have over 100 correct picks. So I'm just saying, I don't know that you're the most accurate. You're definitely very accurate, though. I will say.
Those two are like 70 years old, man. I'm 19. I'm young and turned. So
okay.
If I was 70, bro, I would be at like 115 wins easily.
You better put some respect on Ducon's name there, buddy. First of all, he is not 70. Second of all, I would say that his knowledge is the reason that he's picking so well this season. And trust me, I'm in the same pick 'em. I'm picking worse than both of you guys. And I'm older than you by almost double. Not that I'm trying to put a date on myself. But, so, I mean, at that point, I don't think age necessarily has anything to do with it. But I will give you credit. You're doing a really good job this season. Correct me if I'm wrong, you're in the year-long football championship, right?
Yeah, there's 18 teams in the league. I'm in the championship with Michael Washington, a good friend at the network. Year-long football was they were a little hesitant to let me in, but I told them, man, like, I'm gonna run through all these old heads, and I did. So I'm excited to be in the championship, and I'm about to win too. So it's gonna be fun. I
thought Michael lost last week, but I could be wrong.
No, Michael's in the championship. Yeah, that's why I asked him last night, who did you pick? So I picked Green Bay and he picked Jacksonville because I knew Green Bay was going to win. I knew he would pick Jacksonville too, so I had to go the opposite of him so I could get the points.
All right, interesting. Okay, we are going to get these picks pulled up real quick. I'm going to start off with the bettor's edge, just because that one pulled up quicker. Once again, I always try to give you guys a disclaimer. Bettor's Edge is a peer-to-peer betting system, which is not like your typical DraftKings or something like that. At the end of the day, you have to have a bet on the opposite side for your bet to go through. So definitely make sure that you're keeping an eye on this little gray number here at the bottom where it says liquidity, my fault. $1 one orders. You see the blue one that's lit up. Somebody bet on the over for Nashville. So definitely watch out for that when you're placing bets, because that's obviously highly important. If it does not have an opposite side bet, your bet essentially expires and nothing happens with it. So it's not like you're going to lose money, but at the same time, if the whole purpose is to win money, you definitely want to be aware of where the betting lies and how it works. So definitely just keep that in the back of your mind. Still a reason to bet on there. Still a decent platform from everything I hear. That's just a little wrinkle. But go ahead, Krish.
So for me, I think I look at Nashville and Corpus Christi. Obviously, Nashville is a better team overall. I think they have a better defense, but Corpus is underrated. I like Nashville -6.5. I think it'll be a good 10-point game. Give me the under 270.5. This could be a defensive showdown. Albany and Washington, man. I love you, Coach Wells, but don't even show up for the game, man. You already lost. So just keep your boys inside. Avoid the hassle. Take the forfeit. Y'all about to lose by 50 to 60 points. Give me Albany -27.5 easily, and give me the over. Oregon and Billings, man, +1.5. That's a sneaky spread. But I'm gonna go with my boy Malik, -12.5. that offense for Oregon is suspect for sure. And give me the over for that game. All right, Salina at Salina and Southwest Kansas. Obviously, we talked about Coach Thomas, man. I give him a lot of shit, but this is a big week for him to bounce back. So, I'm gonna give Southwest -4.5, and on the money line. I think it's gonna be a fun game though, for sure. And the under.
The under, huh? Interesting. 92.5 points is the under after they scored a combined 128 points last week.
Man, you already know Coach Thomas and the offense aren't going to go that hard, too, because, they got to rest for the playoffs, and they don't want to get Jalen killed. So
I actually completely disagree. I think with the 2 seed on the line, especially with Nashville losing last week, I don't see a scenario where they don't come to play fully. At the end of the day, you have to look at the benefits, organizationally, of having that home playoff game. Obviously, you don't have to pay to go on the road, and then on top of that, you also have the income from that home game as well. So, I definitely think that there's a very large incentive for them to go ahead and win that game, and I think this is going to be the game of the week, quite honestly. And it would not shock me at all to see this game get chippy. So if you like, kind of chippy games with a lot of competitiveness, I think this is one that you're probably going to want to tune in for. I think it's, like I said, it's the game of the week for me. But Coach B, I'll bring you back in. What were your picks? Oh, looks like he's busy at the moment, but he said in the private chat he picks Salina, Nashville, and Albany. So interesting picks there by him as well. But I'm going to go ahead and pull up the DraftKings page here, and we will discuss the IFL betting. As always, IFL is available to bet on DraftKings. A lot easier platform to use than Bettor's Edge. So definitely check out DraftKings. Go to football, click on indoor football, and the IFL will come up. But Krish, take it away.
all right, give me Quad City money line. Give me the under 81, and give me the. I'm gonna stay away from the spread. It's too risky. San Antonio and Tulsa. San Antonio plus 7.5 is a lock for me. I think San Antonio, you get Rai Rivers back, and I think that's a big move for them. And Tulsa's O-line is a little beat up, so give me San Antonio plus 7.5. I'm going to do the under. Man, Massachusetts and us versus Iowa. Man, I'm going to say this really respectfully, man. These fuckboys, they got to stop playing with us. They really do. 3.5 is disrespectful. We're about to run through Iowa tonight. Give me -3.5, money line and the under. Our team is ready, man. No team in the league can stop our team right now. We're hot. So we're about to beat Iowa, get back to 5-5. And then Marvin Jones, you're about to get that belt next week. Believe that. Tucson and Arizona, Billy back. Your time is running out before you mutually move on from Tucson. Arizona -11.5. Bay Area, DJ Myers debut in Bay Area. I give me Bay Area -2.5. I love that defense, man. I think that defense is something special in Bay. And I got Bay Area in the championship, honestly. And then San Diego and Northern Arizona, San Diego -8.5. Lock.
I'm not going to say it as harshly as Chris just said, but 3.5 point underdog for Iowa. I don't care if they're at home or not. That's crazy. They have not played well enough this year to deserve that spread. So
no, we've been disrespected ever since we came in the league. So it's like, for me, like, I love being the most hated team in the league, but I find it disrespectful, and it's a disgrace to the IFL. Really, I'm embarrassed. I'm embarrassed to be an IFL fan because this is how we're treated. It's so poor, so poor.
So poor, so poor. Definitely. The league just poops all over Mass every chance they get. Just kidding. Coach B, do you have any thoughts on those games this week?
I'm so astounded by Chris, man. You be going, Chris. I I ain't gonna lie. IFL this year been so shaky. I don't know which way to go.
That's fair.
I think I'm gonna take Tulsa over San
Okay.
Antonio, just because San Antonio, ever since Minaj left, it's been kind of shaky. They haven't found their niche yet. Quad City. I'm going with Quad City with the Quad Rivers. You know, I'm up here in Dubuque, Iowa right now, so I'm gonna go with Quad Cities. Mass. I'm gonna give y'all this over Iowa Barnstormers just because I feel like the Barnstormers are going through a hard phase right now. Uh, Arizona Rattlers over Tucson, Bay Area over Vegas, and San Diego over Northern Arizona. I don't think Ron James and them found it yet. Honestly, I think Ron James need to switch and come to the AF1. Somebody else needs to go down in Northern Arizona to the IFL because that's not his niche. And just being totally honest, I could see Coach O going to either Iowa or Northern Arizona or Tucson and doing a hell of a job down there because he's an IFL guy.
It wouldn't shock me entirely to see Coach O turn up in any IFL city for that matter. He's in the IFL Hall of Fame. And then on top of that, would not shock me at all to see Ron James in the AF1 in the future either. Like you said, he's an arena football coach first, was spent the majority of his career in the AFL. So definitely would not shock me there. And
Coach O is
honestly,
getting the bag though from Salina. I watched an interview with him the other day, like 2 weeks ago, and it was from like a month ago. He said, "I'm making close to six figures coaching football." So that was crazy to hear that. I don't think any IFL team would pay him like that.
He did a multi-year deal as well. I think it was a 2 or 3 year deal. That's what he so,
well, I
so
mean, on that note, I think that he deserves it. You know, he's a good coach and he's great, great motivator, I guess you could say. People want to play for him, right? So kudos to him. If that's what he's getting paid, he deserves every penny. Much like I said about the players, I would love every one of these coaches to be making six figures to do what they do. There's a lot of time, effort, sacrifice invested. Coach O, I know for a fact, does not live in Salina full year round. So obviously that's a part of that decision making as well. He has to travel there and then live there for 4 or 5 months out of the year in order to make this all work for Salina. So thank you, Plush King, for dropping on the scores from this past week's action. Montreal beat Ottawa 39-16. That was death by 1,000 field goals in that game. Jose Maltos kicked 6 field goals, scored 21 total points as a kicker. Just an insane game by him. But any final thoughts on AF1, IFL, TAL, AIF before we move on to the final subject of the day, which is the NAL?
No, I just want to give my TAL picks for the week, just so that people know what I'm thinking. I was a little wrong last week. I picked the Goats to win by 5, but I'm going to be a little more conservative this time. I think, I love my boy Bones, man, and as much as I want to see the Hot Springs Wise guys come out with this one, I think Duluth is going to win. Again, I think they're winning by 3 points. It's hard for me to say, but Duluth is going to get this win. Coach B.
It's not, Chris. It's easy for you to say. And what did I tell you? The only thing that's gonna hurt Tay Brooks and Bones down the line, especially with good coaching staffs like this, they need more coaches. They cannot coach offense, defense,
Yeah.
and special teams
Oh, yeah.
by themselves. So when you get to teams like this with good coaching, like O'Neal and the Goats and stuff like that, it's gonna hurt you in the long run, especially even going into the playoffs. You're gonna need that extra help down the line.
Yeah, and I think that's something I could see Bones. He's very well connected. I could see him adding a coach on staff later down. But no, I think Duluth is winning by 2. I think St. Joe is losing by about 8. I think Eau Claire is going to whip up on St. Joe this week. And I got Iowa Woo beating Ozarks. So.
Man, Krish, I'll give you one thing, man. At least you say it with your chest, right in front of somebody who works for the team.
Hey, he do not care. He don't sugarcoat it. That's why I love him.
He doesn't.
I give him hell about it, but I'm gonna tell you right now. You know, if we lose, then I owe you something. Okay, just know that.
I got you.
Sounds good. Sounds good. That's hilarious. No, like I said, kudos to Krish. He definitely doesn't pull punches, and he's going to tell you how he feels for sure. But we're going to take a quick commercial break. We'll transition over to the NAL. And as I mentioned before, we have a pre-recorded interview that's going to close out the NAL section. So we're going to discuss 2 different topics for the NAL, make it nice, short, and sweet. And then you guys will get treated to an interview with Herb Strobing, the head coach of the Sioux City Bandits. A lot of good subjects discussed on there, so definitely stay tuned to that. Like I said, one more quick commercial break, and we'll be right back.
This is Current. It's the card my parents used to pay me for mowing the lawn, running errands, and doing well in school.
Oh, wow.
This is the card I used when we got the idea to make our own clothes. And we spread the word, drove downtown, and sold everything we made. This is the card I use to do the things that really matter. This is Current. Visit current.com and download the app for free today.
I was gonna ask you, is them recording or something? These? Damn.
Okay, we're gonna pull Coach B off real quick. He's at an event right now, working on bringing up some sponsors for his team. Sorry about that, Coach. Sounds like you were busy for the moment, but we're going to go ahead and transition over to the National Arena League. We got a couple different things that we're going to discuss, and the biggest topic at hand this week is, of course, the Beaver Beck in the championship. And they will be facing an expansion team, the Beaumont Renegades. First of all, shout out to Beaumont for how they've come out. They've played. They've been a very talented team. One of the best assembled rosters in the NAL currently, in my opinion. And this is going to be a great game. They've beat Omaha once this year. They host the championship game, so that's a big deal as well. So what are you guys' thoughts on Omaha versus Beaumont in the NAL championship game?
I want to take this first, Chris. Congratulations to Beaumont, and just for any corporate front office out there, if you want somebody to help you build your team, call Coach B, because I was an integral part of that Beaumont starting up. So I'm riding with Beaumont for the championship. I think they're gonna pull it out. I do love Omaha, so don't get it twisted. I love Omaha, but I'm a ride with what I built from the ground up and help be a part of. And I can't go against my boy Solo and Peace, Coach Peace.
Oh, to steal a saying from Cool McCain, I think we lost Coach B to the metaverse. Krish, what are your thoughts on the NAL championship? We'll get Coach B back on when his service catches up.
I first want to highlight a fact. This is the first time in NAL history that both teams have a minority head coach, coaching. I think that's a beautiful thing, man. You give coaches of minority backgrounds opportunities. It's something real special. I know that's something we talk about in the NFL a lot, and that's what these leagues are for. Coaches to get opportunities to move up. You have 2 great head coaches, man. I mean, I'm going to start with Corey Mayfred in Beaumont. He's coming in first year, former NFL player, right? He wants to get back to the game. He's doing this for the love, and I respect that. I respect the hell out of that. So I'm really happy for Coach Mayfred. I think that's a guy who you could see in the CFL eventually. NFL opportunities, man. With his background, yeah, he's for real, man. And I think he built that program well. That Robinson kid is amazing. I mean, I've been a Robinson since week 2. You go back and watch my show. I watch our show. What did I say? I said Robinson. I picked Beaumont to beat Omaha the first time, and I have video proof of that because I believe in Robinson, man. I think he's an amazing quarterback. And Zuri Davis, the only thing that concerns me is that running back room. They're a little hurt at running back. I'll get into that in a little bit, but their running back room is a little thin right now. I think that will hurt them. In terms of Omaha, Coach Negron, man, I honestly was telling someone this. If he wins a championship, this has to go down as one of the greatest coaching jobs of all time. Coming into a new franchise, going 6-1 and winning a championship is something that's never been done before. And so it's really impressive to me. If Ricky Burch wins a championship, he becomes Thanos. He's invincible. You can't beat him because now he has 4 rings with 4 different head coaches. There's no one in the NAL that can even talk to him at that point. There's nothing that Tony Thompson can say, nothing that any of these other owners can say. He's 9-0. I believe they're 9-0 against Sioux City the last 9 times or something crazy like that. But, I think it's insane, man. This game, this is the only championship I wanted. Was Omaha and Beaumont. This is great for the league. This is pure electricity. I know a lot of other people were saying, oh, this Omaha-Colorado game can go both ways. Coach Rez was like, it can go either way. Nah, I always told you Omaha was going to win by 10 to 14 points, and they won by 21. Colorado never had a chance to beat Omaha. Omaha was winning that game at home. And so, someone who doesn't get enough credit is Adam Loftus, defensive coordinator for Omaha. He will win assistant coach of the year. Him and Clinton Solomon are 2 finalists, in my opinion, and Adam Loftus is going to win that job. If I'm a team like Sioux City and Irvin not coming back, Adam Loftus is my first phone call. He's from Iowa. He lives in Iowa. That would be a huge move. If I'm the Colorado Spartans, I'm calling Adam Loftus. Fred Shaw can't do it on his own. He proved it, right? So I'm writing Adam Loftus a blank check to be my assistant head coach. To push me to the next level. Adam Loftus is an amazing defensive mind. Their defense is averaging 23.5 points per game for a rookie defensive coordinator. That's incredible. So I'm a huge Adam Loftus guy. I think he's a great coach, and a lot of respect for him. Coming from a Division I background at UAB to come in the arena the first year and do what he's doing. This game is going to come down to Carl Robinson and Tommy Armstrong. Tommy's going to score every drive, right? And so Carl Robinson is one of the most unique quarterbacks in the idea that he likes to stay in the pocket. He doesn't like to scramble. He loves to use his arm. Omaha's D-line is going to put enough pressure on him that he's going to have to scramble. He's going to have to get out of the pocket and off balance because they don't have that running game with the running backs, right? They don't have Eric Young. Eric Young is out for the season. And so he's going to have to be, he had a season-high 13 rushing attempts, Robinson did last week. And I don't think they'll be able to have that offensive output running the ball. Omaha's rush defense is one of the best in the league. It is the best in the league. So he's going to have to use his arm. And the only way Beaumont can win is if they throw the ball 27 to 30 times on Monday night. And I think Omaha's going to win this game, man. I really do. I think Omaha's going to win by 7. I got it 40 to 33. It's going to be a great game. And I think Coach Negron is going to win the championship. So it's going to be amazing.
I'll say this. I hope your game plan isn't trying to keep Carl Robinson in the pocket because I feel like he's just as dangerous using his legs. So, maybe throw him off a little bit by making him scramble around and throw on the run, but I think he can do it. So that's definitely going to be something to watch in this game. I think that oftentimes in football, you don't get the best 2 teams in a championship team or game. Obviously sometimes things happen in the playoffs, there's upsets, etc. I think that we are getting the best 2 teams in the National Arena League in the championship game. And I think that bodes well for the league. And I think that, they did a very good job in terms of aligning these divisions or conferences for this to happen. Beaumont and Omaha is a game that I think could be one of the better championship games this season. I just think they're very evenly matched, and I think that this is a situation where it's going to be a really good game. So I'm excited to see this game. Actually, probably going to be one of the games of this week. Even if it weren't a championship game, these are just 2 highly talented teams and well-coached teams that are going up against each other. So it's going to be fun to watch. I highly recommend that you tune in and check it out. That's Monday night, correct?
Yeah, Monday night, and it was funny because when Beaumont beat Omaha the first time, Carl Robinson posted on his story the clip of Coach Negron saying that I won't be the one to break the streak. So I think it's funny to see that little, going back and forth, and there's real beef. between the two teams. So I'm excited. And I also want to point out I'm very disrespected that I didn't get invited to NAL Media Day on Sunday. I read it was invite only. I received no invite. So I feel disrespected. Even though I'm not in Texas, I should have received an invite. So
I did not see that. And, whether or not the NAL thought that any of us could have made it to Texas, the fact that we weren't invited, come on, Ricky. Come on, man. Like, I'm sure you're watching. I'm sure you'll see this. Like, for the fact that we didn't even get an invite extended, that's hurtful. That hurts a little bit. I get that we have had our times with the NAL and that sometimes we haven't seen eye to eye, but let me climb up on my soapbox for a minute. And I'm going to come off real cocky. This is probably going to sound more like a Krish take than it is mine, but ain't nobody covering indoor football like we do. And if you think otherwise, you are sorely mistaken. We are one of the few media outlets out there that covers everything, every league, all the way down to tier 3. So for the fact that we aren't even getting an invite, to me, that shows a little bit of bias. And, be biased. That's all I got to say. Whatever it is what it is. But that's a little hurtful. I really wish I had known. Maybe I would have reached out. The joke is really kind of on the NAL if they didn't think we could get there, because we have guys in Texas. We have guys in Massachusetts. We have guys in Maine. We have guys in Pennsylvania, Colorado. We have guys all over the country. So,
I will say this, like, if they did invite me last week, I would have found a way. Honestly, I would have, I'm finding a way to go to Albany. I would have found a way to get down there. But it's fine. 200,000 views in 25 episodes is not good enough. If they want to stay, with the propaganda, they can. But it's very disrespectful. I'm very hurt. I was very, emotional when I found out, I was excluded. And so, it's whatever, man. Brandon and Colin, man, I thought we were boys, but I guess not. If that's the way it's going to be, I'll remember. I keep receipts, too.
Brandon Icard cannot be bothered. He has a company handling his social media. So please defer all comments to the company that he has hired to run his social media. Please. They are there to handle all comments. Just saying. But Coach B is back. Coach, do you want to finish your take on the NAL championship game before we move on? Okay, maybe he's not back. We'll give him a couple more minutes. But transitioning on to our final topic of the NAL segment before we play our pre-recorded interview, there has been some reports. There was actually a video that came out earlier this week that there have been a lot of customers that purchased merchandise from the Shreveport-Rougarou, and they have not yet received them. I've heard claims of over a month. I've heard claims of over 3 months. On top of that, I believe, Krish, you were saying at one point that there were claims that some players have not been paid up to this point as well. I don't recall how many weeks they were behind or anything like that, and hopefully they get caught up. Obviously we don't wish ill on any team, but, there is a situation where, if you want to burn bridges with your fans, make them wait for things they paid for. Whether or not there's a delay in shipping from the company that produces the gear for you, regardless of what the reasoning is, I think that, at the end of the day, the team has to get this stuff figured out. If fans are spending their hard-earned money to try and support your team, you need to get them their merchandise as soon as possible. Again, I understand that there are going to be some delays that are outside your control, but you do everything you possibly can to keep those fans happy and keep in communication with them throughout the process as well. Obviously, I think a lot of teams undersell the value of fans that want to purchase merchandise and stuff like that, because that's easy profit. Realistically, a lot of times when it comes to these fans purchasing merchandise, it's hands off from the team. They don't have to see the merchandise. They don't have to handle the shipping. It goes straight from the provider to the fan, and they collect money. So When it comes to that, I'm a little disappointed to hear this news because honestly, there's a lot of people that are really dedicated to that Shreveport-Rougarou team. And honestly, it's sad to see them turning down any sort of support from their fans or, at least alienating their fans by not providing that merchandise right away. But it looks like we got Coach B back, so let's let him finish his take on the championship game. Sorry, go ahead,
I
Coach.
just said I'm going with Beaumont. I love Renegade. Beaumont. I love the Renegades. I love Omaha. I'm not going against the Beef, but I just think the Renegades are hot. They got what it takes right now to win the championship. And like you said, Carl Robinson is the X factor right now to me. Solo and Coach Peace both calling offense and defense. It's kind of hard to outcoach them when they both been around the game doing what they doing. So I think it's gonna come down. I love Coach Negron, but I don't think he have enough on his coaching staff to help him out scout or out recruit this game or out coach this game.
Fair point. Fair point. Do you have any feelings or thoughts on the situation with the Rougarou and fans not getting their merchandise in a timely manner?
Oh wow! And where's this one happening at?
Shreveport.
I've been here. That's not the only place I've heard that too. I don't know what's going on with teams and what they're doing with their vendors, but I always say make sure you vet your vendors. Do trial runs with purchases before you actually sign them on as your partner, because a lot of people are dealing with out of country or people from Pakistan or China, and they're using them for their fan gear and stuff like that. So you got to be cautious with the tariffs and all that stuff going on now, that you are properly getting stuff out. And I know people will be like, "Oh, it's 2 to 4 weeks." No, it's really 3 to 8 weeks on the wait for fan gear. So if you're doing fan gear and stuff like that, or jerseys, and you don't have a local distributor, you need to be pre-selling that stuff early so you can get it to the player to fans on time. And I think it's horrible when the fans don't get it. And it's the job, the team's responsibility, as the owner or president or general manager, your job to make sure whenever those sponsors or fans purchase, that they receive, no matter if it's going to break your pockets or not.
No, I think that's well said. At the end of the day, like I said, your fans are your lifeblood of your team. So if you're not taking care of the fans and they feel like they're not being taken care of or they're not being heard when they have complaints, that's a dangerous situation and a slippery slope for the long term. Because, once you've alienated your fan base and they are not feeling like they're being heard, especially when it's complaints about spending their money, that money is going to stop flowing to you real quick. So that's a problem for sure. And we've got a couple comments here. Brian Mathern says, GOAT Sports is the official supplier of the NAL, which they are. They also dropped the ball. And I would agree with that. But like Coach B said, regardless of what who's providing it, regardless of what the problem is, it should have been at least communicated to the fans as soon as possible. And at the end of the day, you should be doing trial runs with purchases and everything beforehand so we avoid these issues. Krish, any thoughts on the Shreveport situation before we wrap this bad boy up?
Yeah, I mean, that boy Keith Russ, he's been catching cases like Diddy, for the past 4 years, man. Like, he can't stay out of trouble, so I would not let if I was the franchise, I don't know why they let him run teams. And that Richard Rodgers, his CEO, he's equally the scam artist. I don't want Richard Rodgers ever involved with any team in the NAL. That guy's a liar, and I have proof of it too. But anyway, this is why I only get my merch from Omaha, because I know my merch is going to come in a week, and I'll continue to buy merch from Omaha. Ricky knows I'm never going to ask him for anything free. I'm going to go buy it, because I want to put food on Coach Negron's plate, and I want to help, And so for me, I feel great buying beef merchandise because I know my merch is going to come in a week. You know what I mean? And so that transparency, like I get a tracking label. I know when it's going to come. I'm able to track it. I know what I'm getting. What I ordered is what I got. Honestly, when I ordered that replica jersey, it came better than I thought it would come. It looked in better shape than even the photo. So that to me is like, I want to continue to buy merch from Omaha because I know I'm going to get my merch. I would not trust any other NAL team, maybe Sioux City, but and Wheeling, I would say, to get my merch. I would not buy any team because I honestly don't know if my merch would come, honestly. So I just feel, you know, you got to be transparent. I mean, fans want to buy merch. I want to buy merch at every team. You know, I want to be able to rep every team, you know, but it's like, if I can't get my merch on time, I feel like that's kind of disrespectful to fans, honestly. So.
No, that's fair for sure. Man, I'm not sure what's going on with StreamYard, but we have 71 comments on Facebook page right now, and a lot of them are not pulling up on the StreamYard side. So I apologize, guys. I'm not trying to avoid your comments at all. I'll run through a couple of them real quick. Tony O'Neill says, IFL talk got me nodding. Frederick Elliott says, do we feel like they surrounded Dixie with the right support staff? We already addressed that earlier. Frederick Elliott says, absolutely, TAL is picking up some major traction. I'd love to see it. Tony says, a lot of IFL guys are joining the TAL as we speak, which makes sense. Tulsa 6-4, they can still make the changes they need to make a run for the chip, says Frederick Elliott. Tony O'Neill says Lunkers snagged a beast. Better watch out for him. Some rookies, the stage set to be big.
Lunkers, I'll spoil this. Akil Greer has a big announcement coming, so look out for that on Monday. But Lunkers signed Demisio Ewing from Columbus. So the kick returner, he's coming for the Ozarks. And then Akil has a big announcement, so you can put 2 and 2 together. Ozarks is stat, man. Coach B, I think you should be scared. Ozarks is building something good.
I'm glad to hear the Ozarks Lunkers are making some moves and bringing in players and stuff like that, because obviously that's the benefit of the TAL, right? You know, the NAL season is already finished up for all but 2 teams. The AF1 season's coming to a close. The IFL season has about a half left, but, you know, eventually those players will be available as well. So you can kind of sit back and try to cherry pick some of the better players from the AF1 or the NAL as the season ends. Tony O'Neill says, Cap, Krish got his favorite coaches. He sure does. Facts, Coach B, he says. And then O'Neill was trying to hop on here with us. Coach, I apologize. I didn't see this until late. Definitely would have sent you the link earlier if I had a chance. If you want to join us, we would love to have you on next week. And we can kind of schedule that time out, and I can get you the link ahead of time. So shoot me a DM, you know, Sam Shady on Facebook. We'll get it discussed and get you on. Ricky Barrett says, Coach Thomas has roots in Dodge City between his business plus being a city official. He will, without question, deserve to get offers and looks, but he is very established in the community. Ricky also says any indoor football office position has to have sales tied to it to try and, you know, obviously make them as influential in their position as possible. Tony O'Neill says, never leave the games to the refs. Respectfully, had I been there, we blow you all out. That's in reference to Coach B discussing their game. He also says the DBs were getting blown out in that game, and that's a big reason why Duluth found a victory. Tony also says, how do I become the best coach in the league? So, yeah, interesting to see all this. Corey McCauley says, come and take it. I'm not sure what he's referring to. Axemen are signing Bird. Not sure who he's discussing there. Wise
I
guys.
think he's referring to Jadarius Bird. Jadarius Bird was a DB in Billings. He was with camp with Albany, and then he went to Jacksonville. So he's been around the block. That's a good move.
Okay, gotcha. I wasn't sure if that was the same Bird or not, but yeah, that's a good move for sure. He's a solid player. Lunker signed a dog. Wise guys signed 2 dogs. He tagged the Arena League. Appreciate that as well. Arena Football Statement checking in. Love you guys. Keep up the good work. Ducon, that feeling is mutual, sir. I apologize that I haven't been better about getting you on this season, but would love to get you on over the next couple weeks to talk some football as your year slows down. I know you've got a lot on your plate between the IFL and the NAL right now. Tony O'Neill says preaching, yes, but can go 7-1 then lose to 1-7 team. Not sure what he meant by that, but he did say brothers for life there at the end. So I really appreciate everybody who's tuned in
He
and
talking about
watching.
the goats in the playoff game.
Okay, gotcha. That's fair. Well, I really appreciate you guys all tuning in. It's awesome to have the support from industry people watching this show. So I really appreciate that. I know I got on my high horse a minute ago and talked us up. I'm not that type of guy, but I do feel that, at this point we've built something great and we do deserve some sort of respect when it comes to these
No,
media
and
events.
I really appreciate it too. And honestly, like I'm outside right now wearing all shorts in 42-degree weather. I'm a dog, and so it's like for me, me and Coach Tony, we don't see eye to eye always, but I appreciate him being able to kind of watch this, even though he might not agree with me. Like that for me, like he just earned like a ton of respect for me, and I already have a ton of respect for him. But like honestly, so that's love, man, for real. And so I respect, I love that Ricky watches every show. I love that Coach Thomas watches every show. It's just it makes it more exciting for me. Honestly, it makes it more meaningful. When you have people like that actually care about what you're doing. So I'm gonna just keep continuing to say what I say, and be right about 99% of the time. And yeah, just keep going, man.
Hey, you are funny. You are funny.
You might need to drop that percent just a little.
Just to reiterate, piggyback off that to Coach O'Neill, I give you that. But you had a whole year to build your team last year. We had 1 week. So 7-1 out of 1 week of recruiting, that lets you know I am the top recruiter in arena football. No, but I've done it multiple times from the AIF to the AFL to the TAL to the NAL. I've had the best rosters 9 times out of 10 times with lack of ownership, which all you guys, Tony, have ownership, and Chris and Sam can attest to. My ownership been crappy in all the places I've been, and I still some of the best teams.
Yeah, you've had some pretty tough ownership situations the past couple of years, that's for sure, and still managed to build some pretty talented teams. That Iowa Rampage team, we've talked about it a lot. That was a very talented roster and would have probably been very difficult to beat throughout the season if things had gone correctly. But unfortunately, as we know, that team kind of fell apart. Any final thoughts from either of you guys before we go ahead and play this pre-recorded interview? Also, shout out to Irv Strobing for taking the time to join me. He is an extremely busy guy and was extremely accommodating when it came to working out a time for us to pre-record this interview. He wanted to come on this show. He just simply did not have the availability due to some family businesses that he runs in the off season. So he made the time to pre-record an interview so we could get it on here. So I really appreciate and respect him for that. I, through almost 5 years of covering arena football, have never had a chance to sit down with Coach Strobing and actually have him on for an interview. So I'm very excited about this one for sure. But again, any final thoughts before we move on?
Just go TAL. Good luck to both teams in the NAL championship this upcoming week on Monday. AFL, let's see where you go after this. The playoffs is coming up. I do want to give a shout out to my Iowa Power team. We slowly moving in the background. Gonna be coming up. Be watching for our Power Hour with Krish Vyas on Shady's network coming up soon. So just be watching us. The UIFA is an up and coming league. I took part in this on the back end, but when I'm not with the GOAT, so I think we're building something special here in Dubuque.
Absolutely. I was going to mention that Iowa Power shirt you got on and got a little, got hands in a little bit of everything, working with the KC Goats, helping build Beaumont, involved with the Iowa Power. It's impressive to see, Coach. So really appreciate you coming on and dropping all the knowledge that you got. Excited to see how things work for the UIFA. And, we are discussing the potential of simulcasting their games this season. So I'll definitely be trying to follow them a little bit better this season than I have in years past. So it's definitely looking forward to that. Krish, any final thoughts from you?
Make this the fall IFL. So we're trying to make this like the fall version of the IFL and the TAL, where you get year-round football. So people follow the UIFA. It only gets better if you build it up and help us build the lead up.
Absolutely. Completely agree. And I personally think there's a pretty big gap there. And I mean, obviously you'd be competing with the NAL in the fall, or I mean the NFL in the fall for viewers. But at the same time, I think the people that are watching indoor football are not your casual NFL fans. So it'll be interesting to see how that works in terms of viewership and whatnot. But I think there's a definite market for that.
Man, I got one thing to say, man. In 2023, Coach Negron was gracious enough to bring me down to Carolina, and we had a lunch. And one thing he said during that lunch is, when I'm a head coach, my dream is to win a championship as a head coach. And so to watch him battle what he battled, going through medical issues, surviving cancer, beating a bad ownership group, having to work through all the adversity he went through. Coach, man, you're one game away from your dream, and you're showing everyone, like, if you put in the work, man, if you just do you block out the noise, all the haters, man, all the people that you trusted that turned and stabbed your back, man, they're all watching from Cancun, and it's about to be good, man. And so you're one game away. Go get what belongs to you, and Ricky, man, go solidify yourself as the best owner in the sport. So just best of luck to Beaumont, best of luck to Coach Negron, best of luck to Sam Gordon, best of luck to everyone. I'm really excited to watch this Monday night. It's going to be a great showcase, and it's a big peak for the NAL to have this at their championship. And so I couldn't be more excited, and I'm looking forward to it. Even though I was disrespected and not invited to media day, I'm going to put my pride to the side. But we will be addressing that. I have stuff to say, privately about that. But anyway, just good luck. And tonight, man, my Mass Pirates, walk your trap, take over your trap vibes, right? We're ready. We're ready for tonight. We're about to ball out and watch us put on a show. And Marvin, you're about to get this belt next week. Believe that.
All right. Well, from everybody here at Shady Sports Network, we appreciate everybody who tuned in this morning. A little bit of a smaller crowd than we're typically used to, but having some issues with Facebook currently. So really appreciate all the comments that we got on Facebook. To see 75 some comments as the show is rolling, really appreciate that. Every single comment, and follow all matters to us. Obviously, we're trying to grow this platform. And on that note, we are very, very close to hitting our goal of 2,000 subscribers. We want to hit that long before the end of this month, so we can already start the road to 2,500. So if you have not done so yet, and you're watching on any other platform, whether it's Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitch, etc., jump over to the Shady Sports Network YouTube channel. Subscribe there while you're at it. Subscribe to Shady Sports Network live events to also keep track of all the live games and events that we have coming out as well. There will be a couple more, I believe, this weekend, some fighting. So if you're a big fan of combat sports, definitely tune into those. But real quick, wanted to shout out the fact that we will have an interview with Cody Homedal, the head coach of the St. Paul Bears, coming up right after this show. In fact, in just 6 minutes, it'll kick off with our boy LeCedric Green, who's been getting very involved with arena football and indoor football over the past couple months. So make sure you're checking that out. Shout out to Coach B for joining us this morning. Shout out to everybody who tuned in. Really excited for another great show, and we'll catch you guys next week. But we will leave you again with our interview with Coach Strobing.
I'm just being myself, cool as can be. When I'm being myself, you wish you were me. It's so easy. Get out your own way. It's just so easy.
tonight we are joined by a very special guest, Coach Irv Strobing of the Sioux City Bandits. Coach, how are you doing this evening?
Doing well. How are you, sir?
Doing great. Really looking forward to speaking with you and learning a little bit more about your career. I've been following Sioux City for the last few years at a minimum, and kind of watched you from afar have a lot of success and never had you on. So it's very exciting to have you on. I appreciate your time tonight.
Well, I appreciate guys like you that are willing to cover the sport of indoor football, something I've done for a long time. And so we need more guys like you that are across the nation that are doing that. So appreciate you having me on.
Hey, I appreciate it. Hopefully we see the game eventually reach the heights that it once had, in the early 2000s and stuff like that. I personally, I'm a little biased, obviously, but I think indoor football is a lot more exciting than outdoor football at this point. It's just so much faster paced, almost never a dull moment. So hopefully it catches back on at some point.
Yeah, I would agree with you. It's again, at this point, I've probably done indoor football longer than I've done outdoor football. So, I'm probably a little bit biased as well. You're really never out of a game in indoor football. So anything can happen. And I would agree with you. Back in the day when I was playing, you used to play in front of 5,000-6,000 fans a game. And I wish we could all get back to those levels. Maybe someday,
Absolutely. We're all trying to strive for that. So, hopefully we can work together as fans and media people, and then also the leagues in general to kind of get it back to that point. But that sounds like a good point to start. At what point did you really become aware of and become involved in indoor football?
I would say October of 1999. I had just graduated from Wayne State, moved back home to Sioux City, Iowa, and they announced that they were going to have a indoor football team in Sioux City. And I went to an open tryout, and I was one of the first 10 players signed to a contract with this old Sioux City Attack. That was back in the original IFL. And the original IFL was owned by Kerry Eklund. I think he owned like 18 or 19 teams across the country, owned the whole league. We used to have a debit card. It was called a com check. Every week you'd have your com check loaded and go withdraw your money from the bank, So it was one central location running everything. And my career started in October, I think, of 99. And then obviously the season started in February, March of 2000. And that was our first taste of indoor football in Sioux City. It was called the Sioux City Attack then.
Interesting. Taking us back for sure. I'm curious. Obviously that's kind of a unique setup. You don't really see a setup in this day and age where, somebody owns that many teams across the country like that. Was that, in your opinion, a better setup overall than individual owners, or how did you feel about that situation at the time? Looking back on it, I guess you should say.
Well, there's challenges probably both ways. And I guess I never got to meet Kerry Eklund in person. I just know that for 1 year, everything was ran very professionally, and I think, obviously that will never happen again for one guy to own every team in the league. It just, I don't think feasibly, could happen, with the monetary commitment. And I don't know how he did it back then, but it was a fledgling thing. And, first few years of indoor football at that point. I don't know. Back then, like I said, you got paid the same amount as everybody across the roster. Guys were really playing for the love of the sport and for those, maybe for that film to go on to a higher level. I do think, there's some challenges in different leagues. We recruit against some teams that maybe can pay more than us, and stuff like that. It would get away from those types of things, but I don't ever see it going back to that. So you're going to have to deal with your local ownership, and hopefully we can get more quality owners out there in the league that continue to do the sport that we love.
Absolutely. So over the past couple of seasons, you've kind of been through multiple different leagues and rule sets and even had to deal with the 3 and 4 point conversion of the CIF and, all these different wrinkles that have kind of been mixed in along the way. Do you have a preference in terms of the rule set that you play in, and as far as arena versus indoor?
Yeah, definitely indoor. I'll probably retire if Sioux City ever chose to go to arena. I'm an offensive lineman. I like to, if anybody out there has followed Sioux City, we run the ball here. Minus the last couple of years, we always had a pretty high-powered offense, and that running game would lead to a lot of scoring as well. I think a lot of teams are now having mobile quarterbacks, maybe running the ball more than back in the day when they used to just chuck it around the whole time. But that's why I really love the indoor rule set. I think it allows coaches to coach schemes, and also, we can run the ball, we can throw the ball. You never know what we're going to do. But in that the arena set, it's a drop back and throw it up to your best player every time, and that gets a little bit boring and monotonous to me. I know that there's a lot of fans that love that, but it's just not my style of football, and so I prefer the traditional indoor rules.
Absolutely. Makes perfect sense. Like you said, former offensive lineman, stick to your roots. Offensive linemen love to run block, right? So makes perfect sense. Out of curiosity, I mean, you said it just a moment ago, you're a very run heavy offense. And one thing that I've loved in particular about following the Sioux City is I think you guys are the only team in any indoor football league that I've watched recently to run a 3-back set. Kind of a variation of, I guess, the wishbone, you could say. How did that idea come about, and when did you first start using that formation?
It was my first year as a head coach in 2012. We signed 3 running backs that year, and we had a little bit larger of a roster, but we had the 3 best running backs come to Sioux City. I had a guy that played for the Sioux Falls Storm named Sean Treasure. He was in the old IFL under the Storm. And then we had Johnny Bentley, who holds most of our career running, records in Sioux City. He played for us for years and years. His jersey's retired. And then a guy that's currently playing, I think, was on that team, Drew Prohaska. And we were like, which guy do we cut? So we developed a set where we get them all in the game at the same time. And then, it kind of ballooned from there. Like, that's our goal line set. We can use it out in the field, which we don't do a whole lot. But, yeah, I mean, it's been something that, was personnel based at first, but it kind of caught on. And I actually do see a few teams actually using it now. Wheeling has used it pretty effectively. Short yardage sets. I saw Columbus, I think, maybe run it a few times this year. So, but yeah, that started back in 2012.
That is awesome. Like I said, been a big fan of that formation in particular. It's just something it's a unique wrinkle. You don't see a whole lot of teams using it, but I actually missed that Wheeling has been using it. So interesting. I'll have to go back and kind of watch some more of their games in a little bit more detail. But we talked about Wheeling just a moment ago. You actually pointed out a couple teams there, Columbus included, that it came back into the NAL in 2025. How has it been for you as a coach to kind of deal with the changes in the leagues from year in to year out? I mean, just 2 seasons ago, you were in the CIF. You had returned all 8 teams, in 2 seasons consecutively, and I think was one of the first leagues to do that in many years at that point. And then, jump over to the NAL in 2024, deal with a whole lot of chaos, make it through the season, obviously. And then in 2025, you gained some pretty solid playing partners in Beaumont and Wheeling and Columbus. And ultimately, it looks like the NAL is, quite frankly, on the way up, if you ask me individually. So how has it been, as from a coaching perspective, dealing with all those changes over the past couple seasons?
And honestly, at this point, I've got a lot of guys that return every year. We're real vet heavy, so it doesn't really change much for us, other than, hey, we're going a little farther on a road trip, or hey, it's a different team. I mean, we've been in the game long enough now that there's not a whole lot you can throw at least myself and my staff that's going to really affect us a whole lot. I've been on a bus to Johnstown, Pennsylvania as a player. Billings, Montana as a coach and player. I mean, just long road trips. We've seen beautiful arenas. I've seen arenas that they rolled the turf out over the rodeo barn and way back in the day, dirt, it would be all lumpy. So I've kind of at this point seen it all. So it doesn't really. I would, one of the big things for us coming into the NAL was going. You asked me off camera about the I-29 rivalry. I think it's very important to hold some of those in place, and it's been a great rivalry with Omaha. So I feel like we really, the success of both programs piggyback on each other. Obviously we hate each other on the field, but respect the heck out of them off the field and whatnot. So keeping some of those regional rivalries intact. We can add some farther away teams that are, I got to meet some really good people going to, Idaho and Wheeling and Beaumont, some new places, So that doesn't affect me a whole lot, I guess, at this point, but maybe a little longer road trip here and there.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. Those bus trips, I can imagine it can be grueling for sure. So you talk on that I-29 rivalry a little bit. I mean, obviously, that is one of the storied rivalries in indoor football, Omaha and Sioux City. It seems like every year there's got to be at least one game between you guys, and it's just honestly always fun to watch, no matter who wins, who loses. How challenging is it to build specifically? I don't want to say specifically, but to beat the Beef when they've had as much success as they've had over the past couple seasons?
In this rivalry, honestly, it doesn't matter about success. I can tell you, and this is my story to my players every year. The last time we won a championship, way too long ago, 2015, the Omaha Beef got one win that year. We finished, I think our record, you have to look back, was 11-3 that year. We lost to the Omaha Beef, and they had one win. So it does not matter success or not success. We could have, this year, we were 3-6. You can look at that as this was a rough year for us. We played Omaha kind of down to the wire, probably both times. When you look at it, there was not a game that was not exciting. There was a few years ago, craziest game that I've ever been involved in. There was 31 points scored in the final minute and a half. It was back and forth and back. I mean, it was just crazy, so how many lead changes in the last minute and a half on huge plays. And if you left that game, try to beat the crowd and get out in the 2-minute warning or whatever, you lost, you missed a lot of game. And so that's the way it is. It doesn't matter who's successful or what their record is that year. It is literally going to be a dogfight every time. And to me, that's the reason that still gets my juices flowing to do this and be a part of it.
That was actually going to be my next question. I mean, you've been doing this for what you said, almost 30 years at this point. And, if you count your time as a player as well, what keeps you going? I mean, in terms of coming back to indoor football, I know obviously we all love indoor football, but it's not the easiest sport to coach or play, I imagine.
Yeah. I mean, I when I was a younger guy, I used to like to golf a little bit. I might have fished or done. I kind of forgot how to do all that with indoor football taking up all my time. So, I kind of lost some of those hobbies, and this has become my hobby. It's what I do for fun. Sometimes it's not fun. It's very frustrating. And look at our record right now in our season, and we're sitting home wondering what the score is of some playoff games right now. And that's not a fun feeling to have. But, I think, again, I have a lot of guys we're a little bit different program here. I got a lot of local guys that play for me. And when I say local, they might live in Sioux Falls and drive in for practice, which is an hour. A couple of them drive in from Omaha, So I get to know these guys real well. And, it's like a big family, and it's like, hey, what are we doing this year? Are we all going to come back and try to run this thing again, or was everybody going to retire? And I think, if that game in Omaha last year where we lost double overtime championship by 1 point, I probably could have signed every single person that night to a contract. They did not. That didn't sit well, and I think I'm not sure where they're going to be with the, getting knocked out of the playoffs, not even making the playoffs this year. But I would expect a lot of them don't want to end on a losing record. So I don't know. Competitiveness keeps me going. I don't know what I guess I would do with my time if I wasn't yelling at players and referees and preparing for games and getting on buses and all that good stuff.
Absolutely. It sounds like maybe some fishing, but we'll see. We'll see. Go long. I'm sure many, many more years of coaching before you hang it up, hopefully. We talked about it just a moment ago. You talked about the fact that this season did not end how you would have hoped, I imagine. 3-6 record overall, probably one of the toughest in recent memory for you guys. As far as I remember, one of the worst records you've had in a while. Talk to me about how you keep players motivated, especially at the end of the season, when the season's kind of slipping away from you there, and keep them invested, playing throughout the whistle. That was one thing that I kind of noticed about your team all the way up until the end. It seemed like they were still very invested, still playing for each other. Didn't seem like there was any quit in your squad whatsoever.
Well, I think it was up until the last week when we played Colorado and got beat, kind of handily at the end. That was probably our toughest week. We knew at that point we weren't making the playoffs, but up to then, you look at, at the point we were 3-5, you have to go back and look. Our largest loss was 7 points. We lost to Beaumont at home on the very last play of the game. We held a 11-point lead to Beaumont at halftime down in Beaumont, and then the lead just slipped away. Starting quarterback, separated his shoulder and had we had a rough second half all the way up and down the roster. We just didn't make plays, but we left an 11-point lead get away from us down in Beaumont. So these are games that we probably should have won. Omaha, I think they scored down in Omaha with a minute left to kind of seal the game. And Wheeling, we had a chance. So our largest loss up to that last Colorado game was 7 points. And so we were in every ball game, and that was my message to the guys. When we're sitting at 2-3, it's like, guys, if you go out and make 3 plays, right, 1 play each of these losses, it's a win, and we could be 5-0. So I think they understood that they were. I mean, again, you look at a 3-6 record, and most people say Sioux City Bandits stunk this year. You have to look at our, 2 of our losses were Beaumont. They're going to the championship game. 2 of our losses are to Omaha. They're going to the championship game. We held 6 losses. So we had obviously the schedule gods were not kind to us, but, in this game, it doesn't matter. We have to win those games. And unfortunately we didn't, but we played them tough, and we played them, very close in those games. So it wasn't hard to motivate my guys up until that last week when we knew we weren't making the playoffs.
Absolutely. That makes perfect sense. Now, obviously, you and I talked off camera about this particular situation, so I wanted to ask you on camera. This season, obviously you guys started off the year with Verlon Reed as your starting quarterback. You had Tyler Lowenstein as the backup, kind of a veteran as well, who's been kicking around the CIF and the NAL for the past couple seasons as well. When you guys started to struggle and, ultimately we're trying to find a spark, how close were you to pulling the plug on Verlon Reed and ultimately starting Tyler?
Well, how close? I don't know. I mean, we ended up splitting time with him. And I think that, Tyler's a great young project, right? He doesn't have a lot of game experience. He's been in camp with us, I think, the last 3 years. He was with Omaha for a year, but he never had game experience. So as far as a game manager, a guy that's going to go out there and, in the heat of the battle, he's still raw, right? But man, his upside is great. He's a team guy. He's a team leader. He'll be there and he'll do anything. I mean, he's gone out and, sold sponsorships for us and delivered tickets, and just like the kid will do anything for the team, right? And the guys recognize that. Now, Verlon, like I said, got hurt in that first Beaumont game. Well, that was a trip that we didn't have Tyler suited up. So unfortunately, with that long of a bus trip, and some roster, we had a couple guys banged up. We had to take some other positions, so we didn't suit a backup quarterback. So Verlon separates his shoulder in that first game. Now we're struggling through it. Well, he sat out the second game. Tyler came in and started against Idaho, played real well. Then Verlon, I think we had a bye week, and then Verlon got healthy. Healthy, I had a good talk with him at one point, middle of the season, at the point where he was maybe Verlon's a great athlete. He played receiver at Ohio State, and now he's a quarterback. So, I think one of the things that made him successful in the past and last year with us is he would tuck it and run it. And he sat in my office and said, Coach, I think I've been, with that injury, I've been real timid to go out and be an athlete. Right. But us suiting Tyler and playing Tyler. And I said, I got to either, I sat him down in my office. I said, I either got to, spark you to play better or get Tyler ready for the future. And either way, we're going to benefit from this, so we went with a 2 quarterback system for a while. And it worked. I mean, they both played better. We got a couple wins against Idaho, and I can't remember who in the middle there, but we were again competitive in those games. We just didn't make enough plays at that position and other positions to win some of those close ones.
That is fair for sure. You talk about elite athletes, and you have a guy on your roster that's always kind of intrigued me as a fan of the game, and that's Devon Blair Jr. Talk to me about how valuable a guy like that who can play multiple positions, even add some depth as a quarterback, play some receiver, some defensive back, how valuable he can be for your roster construction.
Yeah, I mean, there was another one. We talked about that Beaumont loss the first week. We brought him in to be an athlete, right? We know he can play quarterback. We didn't know he could play DB, but he ended up playing DB for us, right? Because we had just the injury bug this year, and you have guys that are good athletes like that. Like Coach Loban came to him and said, "Hey, can you play DB?" Coach, I haven't played it since high school, but I'm willing to help you. And he's he's going over there and being pretty serviceable at DB. But that Beaumont loss, we brought him in to say either you're going to be a starting receiver or rotating in and maybe our backup quarterback, as good of an athlete as he is. But he was hurt for that Beaumont trip too. He pulled his groin or hamstring in camp. And so he didn't play in our preseason game. He didn't play against Beaumont. It took him a few weeks to kind of get in the system with us. Due to that injury early on in camp, which stunk, but ended up having a pretty good season for us and playing a lot of different positions.
Absolutely. I was going to say he had 7 tackles, 9 receptions for 46 yards, a couple touchdowns, also had a couple 9 carries for 46 yards, a couple touchdowns. I think he had 4 receiving touchdowns as well. Did some kick returning as well. So it's got to be a huge benefit to have a player that can kind of plug in wherever, especially when you have a smaller roster like you do in indoor football.
Well, absolutely. He might have been kicked for us actually in one game. I can't remember if he actually did it. We had our kicker couldn't make the Idaho trip because he's a local kid. He's a teacher here in town, and so he couldn't make that trip. So we kind of had to use kicking by committee in the Wheeling game and also the Idaho game, unfortunately. And Devon was one of the guys out there, that was on our short list of kickers because he did pretty well in practice. You mentioned rosters. I mean, one guy, not to talk about last year or whatever, but Braden Mites. You compare the valuable, that kid played literally every position for us. And he moved back home to Eastern Iowa this year, so he wasn't available to us. Now, had we made the playoffs, he might have been on our playoff roster. I was still trying to work some angles there. But, with the 21-man roster, a guy that can do multiple things is so valuable to you. And you got to have a couple of those type of guys on the roster to be successful.
Okay. Unique question. This is something that's kind of been a debate with me and some buddies on the network. So I wanted to get an offensive lineman's opinion on this one. So in your opinion, what's the most important position when it comes to looking across the roster as a whole, when you look at your roster from a year-to-year basis on where you want to start building it at?
Quarterback. Easy. I mean, you and I just checked the scores before to see who's going to the championship game. In my opinion, it's no surprise that Beaumont and Omaha are in the championship game. They just signed Tommy Armstrong, obviously, last week, but you had Lorenzo Brown in Omaha, who was probably going to get him there regardless, right? But now they added Tommy. And the kid down in Beaumont. I mean, that kid, shoot, why is his name even slipping my brain right now? He all they read on the stat sheet was the quarterback, right?
Carl Robinson.
Yeah, Carl Robinson. Go look back at our YouTube or Huddle video of that first game down in Beaumont with Sioux City. He won that game for him, and then he won the game in Sioux City. I mean, you put an average quarterback on that, and that's nothing. They got a good team, right? But you put an average quarterback in those ball games against Sioux City, either place, and we would have won those games. I mean, that kid's special. So it's no surprise to me that probably the two best quarterbacks in the league are going to be playing in the championship. So easy for me.
That is fair. I'm actually on the other side of that. I say center because obviously if you have a bad center, quarterback's not going to be able to do much. But I was curious what you would say on that one, so I wanted to throw that in there.
Well, offensive line is a quick number two in my position, or in my opinion. But that, I mean, you don't have somebody that's calling the shots, leading the squad. Doesn't matter if you have the greatest offensive line in the league if you don't have somebody that's delivering the ball. But offensive line is quick number two.
Absolutely, completely agree. And it's honestly hard to find at this level. So that's a whole nother story for another day for sure.
Absolutely.
But, talk to me about how the challenges involving recruiting at this level. I mean, I know there's a lot of situations where guys just look down on indoor football, to be completely honest. Other players, they'd rather, go into the working world and stuff like that. So you're not just necessarily competing with other teams, but you're competing with the work, the outdoor, the world outside of football as well to get these guys to come in. Kind of speak on that a little bit for me.
Well, I guess I'm probably I don't want to say I'm maybe sometimes too honest with guys, like if you got an engineering degree, and I'm calling you saying, hey, I love your film online and whatever, and you tell me that, and don't delay your life if you got a great opportunity and a great degree and go, the odds of guys making it from our league, unfortunately, to higher leagues. Now our center, Chris Slugger, is still playing in the CFL. He played with us in 2019. He was a guy who had a shot in the NFL, shot in the CFL, and came back to us, and then has been up in the CFL since that 2019 season. So, but the number of guys that happens to is so small that you really, I try to bring guys in and teach them about life. Like, hey, this is what you got. First of all, your film. You can't be a guy that shows up part-time on film at this level. You got to be a dude, right? And lead the league but also stand out to your coaches, because when a coach does call me, I don't want to be, giving him a guy that I think, because I know what it would take to get to that next level, right? So recruiting guys is tough. You have to be honest with them. Like, dude, if you got a great job and a wife at home, don't come to Sioux City. I wouldn't want to take you away from that. But if you want an opportunity to continue to do something you love, we got a great spot here in Sioux City to do that. We've got a great coaching staff. Probably the most. When you look at the years on the guys on my staff in indoor football, probably the most experienced staff in the country on any level. But I mean, none of them are going to get rich doing it. So you really have to sell them on the opportunity that what you're going to bring to them in Sioux City. Hopefully they can get a championship. We've been competitive every year. But yeah, it's tough. You have. I mean, I think I don't know. I don't follow AF1 too much and what their pay limits are anymore. But I think we lost quite a few players to the AF1 just due to their pay structure or whatever. I lost my starting left tackle to an AF1 team 6 days before camp started. You know what I mean? And that's a challenge. And I guess that's probably something I don't want to say too much publicly, but the discrepancy in pay out there in some leagues, I think it's I guess why some teams and leagues are having challenges. Indoor football, nobody's going to get rich, owners included, coaches included, players included. So I guess I'm honest with guys with that. So if making $100 a week extra is going to take you to a crappy team in a different league or whatever, more power to you. But I hope to sell these guys on the fact that, come to Sioux City, we got a great coaching staff, we got a great owner, we've been around a long time, and we hope to compete for championships, unlike this year, but that's the goal every year. I don't necessarily think that they can get that other places. So, but yeah, I mean, it's challenging, just life in general. People, when they get out of college, they get married, have kids, and get jobs, and all those things compete with indoor football. And then you have all the other teams across the country that they could go to.
Absolutely. I mean, it's not easy for sure by any stretch, and I'm sure it's not easy for for coaches like yourself to balance your outside life as well as trying to coach and stuff like that. As we talked about off camera, you've got other endeavors that you're doing outside of football as well. So I can imagine it's tough to balance that sometimes. But man, I basically think I've exhausted all my questions. My last question to you would be kind of a broad, overreaching one, and you can kind of go into as much detail as you want on this. But how do you try to rebound from a season like this? You guys went 3-6, like we said. Obviously there was a couple of close losses and stuff. I mean, do you look back at this year and see massive wholesale changes coming for next season, or are you trying to bring the band back together, make a couple tweaks here and there to try and keep progressing forward with the veteran group that you've leaned on for the past couple of years?
I guess I'm a big believer in you asked me before if I had watched. I haven't watched since we lost against Colorado and had the last week of the season. I haven't watched a game, right? I'm a big believer in decompressing and letting my brain rest away from it a little bit and try to refocus. I always have to, every year, right when the season's over, whether you win or lose or whatever, you're like, I'm over it, right? Like I've worked my butt off. I need some time. I usually, July, we go on family vacation and get away from it, and I don't think about football. And maybe I'm weird for that, but I try to get away from it for a good amount of time, and then I find myself missing it, right? And now I'm like, all right, how am I going to get this better? So I try to just wash my plate of it right now, and probably all the other coaches in the league are like, wow, I can't believe he does that, right? But that's just how my brain works, right? So I'll sit down with my coaching staff, and we are a very veteran crew. I got guys that are, so there's two ways you can think of it. Okay, are we losing these games because I have older players and they're a step slower, or what needs to change to motivate these guys, or what, or like I said, you look at the schedule and hey, we had a pretty darn tough schedule and we're in all these ball games. Maybe we get a little better schedule next year, tweak a few things and roll the table, right? So those are things I don't know yet, right? I want to sit back and I want to talk to my guys. Like, are they hungry? Are they still hungry? And I have, again, good relationships with my players. We talk in the off season, and we'll start those discussions. But I'm not going to start them until, they've had some time to miss this game. Because right now they're probably like, hey, geez, I'm all right, right? I beat my body up, I want them to miss it before I call them and say, are we invested in this again? Because if so, we got to get better. So I don't know. I mean, you could go two ways with it. I could have a lot of guys retire and we come back and we get a lot younger. But I'm in the fact that, Well, we haven't won for a while. Bringing in a veteran crew is always a positive, right? To keep the culture going. But maybe we need to tweak some things, and those are things that we'll figure it out. Haven't had a losing record since what, 20, I don't know. I don't even know, 2017, 18, 19, whatever. 2018, we went to the championship. So it's been a long time, right? And I don't want to do it again. So the goal is we'll figure it out and make a few changes here and there, but wholesale changes, I'm not sure yet.
Completely fair. One last kind of bonus question here. At what point do you, start considering walking away from the game in general and kind of focusing on your endeavors outside of football? I mean, is it at that point where, when you kind of do your decompression ritual and you kind of step away from football and you don't miss it? Is that ever, do you ever foresee something like that even happening? Let's put it that way.
Yeah. I would like to figure out an exit strategy and get a guy ready and to take it over, because I put my mark on the program for 26 years as a player and coach. And, we have processes in place that, but all of the staff that I have together is like, we're in it if you're in it, right? Coach Loban, I'd love for him to take over as a head coach someday. Maybe he will, but he's like, or if you're not doing it, I'm not doing it. You know what I mean? So, and now I feel like, okay, I got to figure out how to get him ready or one of the other guys ready to take it over. But again, the question you asked is, if there's ever a day where, I go on vacation in July with the family and I come back and I'm like, I don't miss it. That'll be the time to walk away. Hasn't obviously happened yet. But I guess we'll see. There's been years it was close where I'm like, man, I don't know what the, I'm kind of missing it, but I'm like, it'd be all right to be out of here. But I think I still got some games left in me coaching, and we still got a pretty good organization behind us here in Sioux City, and so until something like that would change, we're gonna come back next year and be strong.
I would argue one of the best organizations behind you that you could possibly be with, to be honest, as stable gets, as we talked about off the camera. Really appreciate your time tonight, Coach. I've been looking forward to this for a while, so I appreciate you carving out a half hour for me tonight. And, this will be airing next Saturday at 8 a.m. Eastern, so hopefully you tune in and we did you some justice as far as the Sioux City Bandits. But like I said, just really appreciate your time tonight and you making the time to come on here and speak with me.
Well, you and I have been texting all season, and I guess let's make it happen earlier next year if you want me to. But again, I appreciate guys like you and Dukan Williams had me on last year and mic'd up, all that stuff. And guys like you, there's several others out there, but I'm doing these podcasts and these websites and whatever. It obviously helps broaden our reach throughout the country. So without guys like you, only the people around Sioux City know. So I appreciate you taking your time to cover everybody and all the different leagues you cover and doing what you do. So thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I'm sure Dukan appreciates the shout out as well. He's honestly, in my opinion, one of the best out there. And from a fan's perspective, that mic'd up segment you guys did last year was amazing. Hopefully a lot more of that to come, because honestly, that gave like a whole different feel that a lot of leagues just don't have, so that was really awesome to go back and watch the championship game and kind of get you and Coach Tatum mic'd up and kind of hear your reactions throughout the game. That was, it was really cool to see that curtain peeled back from a fan's perspective.
Yeah, I mean, he did a great job. And again, he runs stuff like you here on the Facebook and webs and all. I mean, it's pretty awesome to have guys doing that kind of stuff. And yeah, that was pretty cool. I mean, he asked me before, hey, would you be mic'd up? I'm like, oh boy, I don't know if he said, Coach, I can edit it down. And he sent me the unedited version. It was funny as heck, but I'm glad he took a lot of the colorful language out.
I was kind of wondering about that. That I can imagine you get pretty fired up during the game. But Coach, would love to have you back on earlier next season, and hopefully we can continue talking this off season. If there's anything we can do here at Shady Sports to help you out in your pursuit of a championship next year, please feel free to reach out. You know, we always have players reaching out and stuff like that, so we'd love to help you in any way possible. But again, appreciate your time. Would love to have you back on next season, and I hope you enjoy your off season and come back missing football more than ever.
I appreciate it, man. Anytime. You let me know.
Definitely. Have a great rest of your night, Coach.
You too. Thank you, sir.
I'm a game changer. I'm a game changer.